Hello there, welcome to another peaceful evening together. I'm so glad you've joined me tonight on this special journey. Make yourself comfortable as we prepare to travel through the depths of time. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss our next soothing adventure into the animal kingdom. Each video is carefully crafted to help you drift into peaceful sleep while learning fascinating secrets of nature. Take a moment to find a position where your body feels supported and secure. Just like an ancient turtle that has found comfort in its shell for millions of years. Let your shoulders relax completely. Feel how your breathing becomes deeper, slower, like the waters of the ancient ocean slowly rising and falling. Tonight, we're embarking on an extraordinary journey through time, to creatures whose wisdom has been forming for millions of years. Breathe in deeply, and with each exhale, release the transience of the modern world. Imagine that with each inhale, you absorb the tranquility and wisdom of ancient times. And with each exhale, you free yourself from the hustle and worries of our century. Yes, deeper, slower. Let yourself become an ancient being, one whose perspective spans not years or decades, but millions of rotations around the sun. Can you hear it? The profound silence that dominated our planet millions of years ago. Before cities, before engines, before human voices filled the air. That primordial silence still exists deep within the consciousness of our planet's oldest living creatures. They carry it within them like a treasure, a memory of a world we can barely imagine. The air was different then, richer in oxygen during some periods. The very composition of our atmosphere has shifted dramatically over the eons. Yet some creatures have witnessed these grand transitions, adapting so perfectly that their fundamental form remained unchanged. They breathe the air of worlds we will never know. Worlds where the continents themselves were arranged in patterns unrecognizable to our modern eyes. Where stars that have long since burned out still shone in the night sky. Think about that for a moment. Some of the creatures we'll meet tonight have lineages that observe the slow dance of continental drift. They've seen landmasses collide and separate. Witnessed the formation of mountain ranges. Watched as valleys became seas and seas became deserts. All while maintaining their essential nature, their perfect adaptation to the changing world. The distant sound of waves breaking on primeval shores reaches us across time. Can you hear the gentle rhythm? These are the same oceans that have cradled life since its very beginning. Their patient whispers have remained unchanged while continents have shifted and species have come and gone. This eternal rhythm has witnessed the rise and fall of countless creatures, yet remains constant, a heartbeat of our living planet. Listen more closely now to the rustling of ancient ferns swaying in a breeze from millions of years ago. The soft buzzing of the first insects as they navigate through a world of giant plants. These sounds represent the first symphonies of terrestrial life, compositions that began long before human ears existed to appreciate them. Yet they continue today, carried through time by creatures that have remained nearly unchanged since those distant eras. Water droplets falling from prehistoric leaves. The gentle scraping of ancient arthropod limbs against bark. The first tentative croaks of amphibians as they discovered their voices. These sounds form the acoustic landscape of our planet long before mammals evolved to hear them. The creatures we'll explore tonight have been listening to these primordial symphonies since before the age of dinosaurs. Their sensory systems attuned to vibrations and patterns we might never fully comprehend. Imagine hearing the world through senses developed hundreds of millions of years ago. Perceiving reality through neural pathways that evolved in oceans that have long since vanished. These ancient beings process their environment through systems so proven by time that they've remained essentially unchanged while countless other species have risen and fallen around them. Their perception of reality is both alien to us and fundamentally connected to our own, for we share a common ancestor somewhere in the midst of deep time. Tonight, we'll meet these living time capsules. Creatures whose bodies and behaviors have been so perfectly adapted that they've required little change for millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of years. They are the true elders of our planet, living libraries of evolutionary wisdom. Their existence spans geological epochs, their cells carrying memories of a world we can only imagine through fossils and scientific reconstruction. What can we learn from beings who measure time not in hours or days, but in eons? What wisdom might we gain from creatures who have witnessed the rise and fall of entire ecosystems? These living fossils teach us the value of slowness in a rushed world, the power of patience in an age of immediate gratification, the beauty of remaining unchanged when all around you transforms. They have weathered mass extinctions that wiped out nearly all their contemporaries, survived planetary disasters that reshaped Earth's very surface, endured climate shifts that transformed lush jungles into barren wastelands and back again. While countless species failed to adapt and vanished forever, these remarkable survivors continued. Not through constant change or frantic adaptation, but through the serene mastery of their particular ecological niche. They found perfection early and maintained it through the tumult of geological history. Consider the profound patience this represents. While evolution typically drives creatures to change, to adapt, to transform across generations, these living fossils found their optimal forms so early that further change proved unnecessary. They achieved evolutionary enlightenment, a state of such perfect adaptation that the relentless pressure of natural selection could do little to improve them. They are, in a very real sense, evolutionary masters. Beings that solved the challenges of their existence so completely that they transcended the need for significant change. As we begin this journey, I invite you to become a time traveler, to slow your internal clock down to the pace of geological time. Where a million years might pass in the blink of an eye, yet a single moment can stretch into infinity. This is how our ancient companions experienced the world. Not rushing from one moment to the next, but fully inhabiting each second, each breath, each heartbeat. The ancient creatures we'll meet tonight have perfected the art of being. They don't strive or struggle against the flow of time. They have found their niche, their perfect adaptation, and have remained there, content in their evolutionary success. They remind us that sometimes the wisest response to life's challenges is not constant change, but finding a state of balance and remaining there. This stability across vast stretches of time doesn't mean these creatures are simple or primitive. Quite the opposite. Their unchanging nature represents a profound sophistication. Their genomes contain solutions to environmental challenges so elegant and complete that they've required little revision for hundreds of millions of years. While younger species constantly experiment with new adaptations, often failing and going extinct in the process, these ancient beings continue their measured journey through time, carrying within them the original blueprints of life forms that conquered Earth's early challenges. If you're beginning to feel heavier, more connected to your bed, that's perfectly natural. We're synchronizing with geological time now, where seconds stretch into centuries and minutes into millennia. Your breathing follows the rhythm of epochs. Your heartbeat echoes the pulse of ancient seas. Let yourself sink deeper into this expanded timescale, where your consciousness can drift freely across millions of years, witnessing the grand parade of life's evolution through the steady gaze of creatures who have seen it all unfold. If you're still following my voice, take another deep breath now. Feel how your body becomes heavier with each exhale, as if you're sinking deeper into the wisdom of ages. Your mind floating freely through time, millions of years backward, then forward again, no longer constrained by the brief span of human experience. You're becoming a witness to deep time, to the slow dance of life on Earth. These creatures we'll meet have been called living fossils, a term that doesn't do justice to their vibrant, continuous presence on our planet. They aren't relics or remnants. They are success stories, evolutionary champions who found their perfect form long ago and maintained it through cataclysms that wiped out countless other species. They have outlived the dinosaurs, survived ice ages, endured the splitting of continents, and they continue to thrive today, carrying ancient wisdom in their genes. Each of these remarkable beings exists as a living connection to Earth's distant past. Their cells divide following instructions written hundreds of millions of years ago. Their behaviors follow patterns established when the world was young. Their bodies move through our modern environment as ambassadors from a time before flowers bloomed, before birds sang, before mammals rose to prominence. They are time travelers in the truest sense, carrying the past into our present, allowing us a glimpse of life forms that would otherwise be known only through fossilized remains. When we observe these ancient creatures, we're not merely looking at animals. We're peering through a window into the deep history of our planet. We're witnessing success stories of evolutionary perfection so complete that time itself has barely touched them. Their genomes represent libraries of solved problems, adaptations so effective that they've remained beneficial across hundreds of millions of years of environmental change. They are, in a very real sense, evolutionary geniuses whose solutions have stood the test of time on a scale we can barely comprehend. Prepare yourself now to meet these philosophers of patience, these masters of evolutionary stability, these witnesses to Earth's most dramatic transformations. We'll begin with creatures from an age before dinosaurs walked the Earth. Travel through oceans both ancient and modern. Observe beings whose lifespans measure in centuries rather than decades. And find ourselves in the presence of predators whose perfect design has remained virtually unchanged for 400 million years. This journey isn't just about knowledge. It's about perspective. About recognizing our place in the grand timeline of life on Earth. If you're enjoying this soothing exploration, please take a moment to like this video and leave a comment below sharing which ancient creature fascinates you most. Your engagement helps our community of gentle nature explorers grow, bringing these calming journeys to more people seeking peaceful sleep. Our perception of time is so limited by our brief lifespans. We measure significant change in years or decades. But the ancient beings we'll meet tonight operate on a different scale entirely. Some species of giant tortoises can live for more than 150 years, witnessing changes that span multiple human generations. The Greenland shark may live for 400 years or more, silently patrolling cold northern waters as empires rise and fall on distant shores. These lifespans, impressive as they are to us, represent just a moment in the vast history of their kind. A lineage that extends backward through time to ancestors who would be nearly identical to their modern descendants. There's a profound humility that comes from contemplating these time scales. From recognizing how briefly our species has existed compared to these ancient lineages. While we've transformed the planet dramatically in our short tenure, these living fossils have witnessed far greater changes with quiet resilience. They've seen natural climate shifts more dramatic than any we've experienced. They've adapted to changing coastlines, shifting continents, and fluctuating atmospheric conditions, all while maintaining their essential nature across spans of time that dwarf human history. As we prepare to meet our first ancient companion, feel your breathing becoming even deeper, more rhythmic, like the slow geological pulse of our planet. Let your consciousness expand beyond the confines of this moment, beyond the boundaries of human timekeeping, into the vast, patient experience of creatures who measure existence not in minutes or hours, but in millennia and epochs. Let's begin our journey through deep time. Now, let's travel together to a remote island off the coast of New Zealand, to meet a creature that has remained virtually unchanged since the time of the earliest dinosaurs. A living connection to an age we can otherwise only imagine through fossils and scientific reconstruction. A being that carries within its cells the memory of a world 220 million years in the past. A reptile so ancient that it exists in its own taxonomic order, separate from all other living reptiles. The tuatara, a true living fossil whose lineage predates most dinosaurs and has survived virtually unchanged while the world transformed around it. As we step into the cool mist of New Zealand's night, we find ourselves in the presence of an evolutionary miracle. The tuatara. Its name comes from the Maori language, meaning peaks on the back. But this creature is far more remarkable than its simple name suggests. This is not just another reptile. This is a lone survivor, the last remaining member of an entire order of reptiles called Rhynchocephalia that flourished alongside early dinosaurs over 220 million years ago. While all its relatives vanished into evolutionary history, the tuatara continued, carrying ancient wisdom through the ages. I invite you to watch closely as this living fossil moves slowly across the forest floor. Each deliberate step represents millions of years of unchanged perfection. If you're finding this journey through deep time relaxing, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support allows us to continue creating these soothing nighttime explorations of Earth's most fascinating creatures. Now, let us return to our ancient friend, whose very existence stretches our understanding of time. The tuatara appears similar to a lizard at first glance, but looks can be deceiving. This remarkable creature is not a lizard at all, but the sole survivor of a lineage that diverged from other reptiles before even the dinosaurs rose to dominance. It is so unique, so evolutionarily distinct, that scientists place it in its own taxonomic order. Imagine being so different from every other living thing that you require your own branch on the tree of life. This is the profound uniqueness of the tuatara. In the world of evolutionary biology, we often speak of living fossils, creatures whose ancient forms have proven so successful that they've remained largely unchanged for millions of years. But few living fossils can match the tuatara's claim to this title. Its basic body plan hasn't changed significantly since the Triassic period. When most of what would become mammals were still small, shrew-like creatures scurrying beneath the feet of dinosaurs. When the continents were still joined in the supercontinent Pangaea. The tuatara's ancestors already existed in a form we would recognize today. One of the tuatara's most fascinating features is what scientists call its third eye. At the top of its head, hidden beneath its scales, lies a primitive photoreceptive organ, the parietal eye, complete with a lens, retina, and nerve connections to the brain. This is not a true eye for forming images, but rather a light-sensitive organ that helps the tuatara track the sun's movement and regulate circadian rhythms. This third eye is a direct link to the ancient past, a feature that was once common among vertebrates but has been lost or greatly reduced in most modern animals. In the tuatara, it remains functional, a window into an evolutionary past so distant that we can otherwise only glimpse it through fossils. As the tuatara basks in the morning sun, this ancient eye connects with light in ways our human perception cannot fully comprehend. A reminder of evolutionary paths not taken by our own lineage. The tuatara's anatomical wonders extend far beyond its third eye. Its skull structure reveals another link to the distant past. Unlike lizards, which have a single temporal opening on each side of the skull, or mammals with their double temporal openings, the tuatara possesses a different arrangement entirely. This skull architecture matches what we find in fossils of prehistoric reptiles. It's as if a paleontologist's illustration has come to life and is breathing before our eyes. Its teeth are not truly teeth at all in the conventional sense. Rather than the replaceable teeth found in most reptiles, the tuatara has sharp, fused extensions of its jawbone. These projections give it a powerful bite, allowing it to crush the hard exoskeletons of beetles and other invertebrates. When the mouth closes, the lower teeth fit precisely into grooves between the upper teeth, a specialized arrangement found nowhere else among living reptiles. A perfect adaptation that has required no improvement for over 200 million years. Perhaps the most profound aspect of the tuatara's biology is the extraordinary slowness of its life processes. Here we find not just an ancient form, but an ancient rhythm of existence. The tuatara breathes more slowly than any other reptile, sometimes taking only 4 to 8 breaths per minute. Its heartbeat is correspondingly unhurried. In the cool New Zealand night, it might beat just once every minute. A pace that would signal death in a human, but represents perfect equilibrium for this master of slowness. The tuatara's metabolism operates at a rhythm closer to geological time than to the frantic pace of modern life. It can go months between meals if necessary. Its digestion proceeds with extraordinary deliberation. And most remarkably, it continues to grow throughout its extremely long life, albeit at an increasingly slower rate. Scientists believe that tuatara may regularly live beyond 100 years, with some potentially reaching 200 years of age or more, making them living bridges across human generations. As you breathe with the rhythm of this ancient being, imagine what it means to experience life at such a pace, where a day is not rushed, a year is not hurried, and a century is merely a reasonable lifespan. The tuatara teaches us that slowness is not a disadvantage. It is a strategy, a wisdom, a way of moving through time that has proven successful across spans that dwarf human civilization. If you're feeling your own heartbeat and breathing slowing to match this ancient rhythm, you're experiencing one of nature's most profound lessons. Another extraordinary adaptation of the tuatara is its ability to function at temperatures that would render most reptiles immobile. While most reptiles require warm temperatures to remain active, the tuatara has adapted to the cool climate of New Zealand. It remains active at temperatures as low as 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius, when many reptiles would become torpid and unable to function. This cold-adapted metabolism is yet another unique feature that has allowed the tuatara to survive in a changing world. At night, when temperatures drop even further, the tuatara may retreat to underground burrows, often those dug by nesting seabirds with whom they share a complex relationship. These shared burrows create a unique ecosystem where the ancient reptile and modern birds coexist, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in tension, but always in a dance that has continued for countless generations. The tuatara may prey on eggs or chicks occasionally, but also benefits from the shelter and relative warmth of the burrow. Another example of the delicate balance this creature has maintained across evolutionary time. This temperature adaptation reveals something profound about evolutionary success. While many creatures require specific, narrow ranges of environmental conditions to thrive, the tuatara demonstrates remarkable flexibility. It can function when it's relatively warm or surprisingly cool. It can remain active during daylight or darkness. It can survive on varied diets and adapt to changing conditions. This flexibility, this resistance to specialization, may be one of the secrets to its extraordinary evolutionary persistence. As the night deepens around us, our tuatara continues its slow, deliberate movements across the forest floor. Each step calculated, each moment fully inhabited. There is no rush in a life measured in centuries rather than decades. No need to hurry when your lineage has witnessed the rise and fall of countless species around you. If you're enjoying this peaceful journey with Earth's ancient creatures, please take a moment to like this video and leave a comment below telling us which living fossil you find most fascinating. Your engagement helps our peaceful community grow. Let's observe the tuatara's movements more closely now. Notice the deliberate placement of each foot, the measured swing of its tail, the slow, purposeful turning of its head as it surveys its surroundings. There is an efficiency here, a conservation of energy that speaks to the profound wisdom of its evolutionary journey. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is rushed. Each movement serves a purpose and is executed with the patience of a creature whose ancestors witnessed the continental drift. The tuatara's hunting technique reveals this same measured approach to life. Unlike the lightning-fast strikes of many predatory reptiles, the tuatara often employs patient stalking. It may remain motionless for long periods, waiting for prey to move within range. Then, with surprising precision for such an ancient lineage, it captures its meal, sometimes storing excess food in underground caches for later consumption. A behavior that speaks to its evolutionary intelligence and adaptation to an environment where food availability fluctuates. The breeding cycle of the tuatara further demonstrates its connection to deep time. Females may reproduce only once every 4 years or more. Their eggs require 12 to 15 months to incubate, the longest incubation period of any reptile. From egg to hatchling, from hatchling to juvenile, from juvenile to adult, each stage proceeds with extraordinary deliberation. A tuatara may not reach sexual maturity until it is 10 to 20 years old, a time frame that would doom many species to extinction if they faced sudden environmental changes, but which has served the tuatara well across millennia of slow planetary transformations. This unhurried reproductive cycle creates a population structure very different from most modern animals. At any given time, a healthy tuatara population contains individuals spanning many decades of age, multiple generations coexisting, creating a living continuum of genetic information. A community where the elders may have hatched from eggs a century or more earlier. Imagine the stability this creates, the resilience against short-term environmental fluctuations. The tuatara exists not just as individuals but as a living timeline, a continuous thread stretching back to the age of dinosaurs. As our time with the tuatara draws to a close, I invite you to reflect on what this living fossil teaches us about the nature of evolutionary success. In our modern world, we often equate success with rapid growth, constant change, and ceaseless activity. Yet the tuatara represents a profound alternative wisdom. Its success lies in finding perfection early and maintaining it, in developing adaptations so complete that they've required little revision for hundreds of millions of years. The tuatara reminds us that sometimes the most successful approach is not constant transformation but achieving a state of such perfect balance that change becomes unnecessary. Not frantic activity but deliberate, purposeful movement. Not rapid reproduction but careful, measured cycles of renewal. This is the wisdom of evolutionary stability, finding your perfect niche and inhabiting it fully, completely, across the vast expanse of geological time. As we prepare to meet our next ancient companion, carry this lesson with you. Feel how your breathing has naturally slowed to match the rhythm of the tuatara. How your thoughts have expanded beyond the confines of human timekeeping. How your consciousness has touched, if only briefly, a way of experiencing the world that stretches back 220 million years. Let this expanded perspective on time remain with you as we continue our journey. With the patience of the tuatara still guiding our exploration, let's now travel from the cool forests of New Zealand to the mysterious depths of the ocean, where another remarkable living fossil awaits us. A creature so ancient, so unexpected in its survival, that its discovery in 1938 was compared to finding a living dinosaur. We're about to meet the coelacanth, a fish that was thought to have vanished 65 million years ago, only to be rediscovered, very much alive, in the deep waters off South Africa. Another testament to the persistence of evolutionary perfection across the vast expanse of Earth's history. As the first light of dawn touches the ancient skin of our tuatara friend, we begin to appreciate a profound evolutionary paradox. In a world obsessed with innovation and constant change, this creature offers us a different wisdom entirely. The philosophy of evolutionary stability. While countless species have appeared and disappeared across the vast expanse of time, transforming through endless adaptations, the tuatara has remained remarkably unchanged. It has achieved what we might call evolutionary enlightenment, a state of such perfect adaptation that further change became unnecessary. This unchanging nature raises fascinating questions about the very nature of success. Is progress always defined by transformation? Or might the highest achievement be finding such perfect balance that change becomes redundant? These questions drift with us as we continue observing our ancient companion in the growing light. If you're finding peace in these philosophical reflections on nature's wisdom, please consider subscribing to our channel. Each week, we explore different aspects of the animal kingdom, finding lessons for tranquil sleep within the intelligence of Earth's most remarkable creatures. The tuatara's evolutionary stability is not merely a scientific curiosity. It contains profound insights for our own understanding of time, adaptation, and success. Consider that while the world transformed dramatically around it, continents shifted, climates changed, countless species emerged and disappeared, the basic body plan and biological processes of the tuatara remained largely unchanged. It found an evolutionary solution so complete, so perfectly balanced, that 220 million years of natural selection could do little to improve it. This stability doesn't stem from isolation or lack of challenges. Rather, it represents a mastery of adaptation so profound that the tuatara became essentially adaptability-proof. Its biology solved fundamental problems of survival in ways so effective that they remained advantageous across geological epochs. While specialized species often face extinction when their particular environmental niche changes, the tuatara's more generalized adaptations allowed it to weather planetary transformations that wiped out countless more advanced creatures. Let us observe the tuatara's environment more closely now. These creatures inhabit the offshore islands of New Zealand, a land that itself represents a kind of evolutionary time capsule. Separated from continental landmasses for over 80 million years, New Zealand developed a unique ecology with no terrestrial mammals except bats. This isolation created a sanctuary where ancient lineages could persist, free from many competitive pressures that drove rapid evolution elsewhere. The tuatara's habitat consists of coastal forest and scrubland, areas where the boundary between land and sea creates a relatively stable microclimate. The cool, consistent temperatures of these regions align perfectly with the tuatara's slow metabolism and ancient adaptations. The creature's preferred environment exists in a kind of balance, neither too hot nor too cold, neither too wet nor too dry. A Goldilocks zone of stability that mirrors the evolutionary balance the tuatara itself represents. Within this habitat, the tuatara has developed complex relationships with other species. Most notably, they often share burrows with nesting seabirds like petrels and shearwaters. These underground chambers provide consistent temperatures and protection. The birds inadvertently maintain the burrow systems, while the tuatara finds shelter and occasionally feeds on eggs, chicks, or the insects attracted to the birds' nests. This is not a recently evolved relationship but likely one that has persisted for millions of years, another example of the tuatara's mastery of stable ecological connections. This balanced habitat relationship teaches us something profound about sustainability. The tuatara takes what it needs without disrupting the overall system that supports it. It has found a way to exist within a network of relationships that can persist indefinitely, neither dominating nor being dominated by its environment. A lesson in ecological harmony that has allowed it to witness the rise and fall of entire ecosystems while maintaining its ancient presence. As you breathe deeply now, imagine what insights might come from a mind that has observed the world with such patient, enduring awareness. As morning light strengthens, we observe one of the tuatara's most characteristic behaviors: the deliberate, ritualistic basking that begins each day. Unlike many reptiles that rush to capture the sun's warmth, the tuatara approaches sunlight with the same measured patience it brings to all aspects of life. It emerges slowly from its burrow, finding a precise spot where the light touches but doesn't overwhelm. Then it remains there, nearly motionless, as its body temperature rises with extraordinary slowness. This daily warming ritual represents more than simple thermoregulation. It is a form of solar meditation, a deliberate communion with the energy source that has nourished life on Earth since its beginnings. The tuatara doesn't hurry this process. It doesn't fight against its cold-blooded nature. Instead, it embraces the slow warming, the gradual awakening, allowing each cell to synchronize with the rising sun at a pace that would test human patience. yet contains profound wisdom about energy conservation and mindful existence. The tuatara's relationship with temperature further demonstrates its mastery of balance. Unlike many reptiles that require high body temperatures for activity, the tuatara functions comfortably across a much broader temperature range. It remains active at temperatures as low as 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius, when most reptiles would become torpid. Its preference for cooler temperatures, optimal at around 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 to 21 degrees Celsius, represents an adaptation to New Zealand's moderate climate. A preference that may have helped it survive while more heat-dependent reptiles perish during climate fluctuations. This temperature flexibility mirrors the tuatara's evolutionary flexibility. By not specializing too narrowly, by maintaining adaptations that work across varying conditions, it created a resilience that spans geological time. As you feel your own body temperature in this moment, the warmth of your skin, the coolness of the air you breathe, consider what it would mean to exist in such harmony with your thermal environment. To neither fight against coolness nor depend upon excessive heat. To find comfort in moderation, in the middle path. This is one more teaching from our ancient friend, whose morning ritual continues with unwavering patience under the strengthening sun. As the day progresses, we witness how the tuatara moves through its world with deliberate awareness. Each action has purpose. Each movement conserves precious energy. The creature spends long periods in nearly motionless observation, its ancient eyes taking in the environment with a patience that seems almost meditative. When it does move, it does so with economy and precision. No wasted effort, no unnecessary haste. This methodical approach extends to feeding. The tuatara doesn't chase prey frantically or hunt continuously. Instead, it waits for the right moment, sometimes remaining still for hours until an opportunity presents itself perfectly. Then, with surprising speed for such an ancient being, it captures its meal. This balance between stillness and action, between patience and precision, represents another aspect of the tuatara's evolutionary mastery. It has solved the challenge of energy acquisition without the frenetic activity many younger species require. The tuatara's diet reflects its unspecialized nature. It consumes insects, spiders, small lizards, seabird eggs and chicks, even small tuatara in some cases. This dietary flexibility has served it well across millions of years of changing food availability. While highly specialized feeders often face extinction when their preferred food source diminishes, the tuatara's varied palate provides resilience against environmental fluctuations. Another example of how generalization rather than specialization has contributed to its extraordinary evolutionary persistence. As you continue to relax more deeply, imagine adopting the tuatara's balanced approach to energy and nourishment in your own life. Moving with purpose rather than agitation. Waiting for the right moment rather than rushing impatiently. Finding sustenance in variety rather than narrow specialization. These ancient rhythms of existence have proven successful across spans of time that dwarf human civilization. They offer wisdom our hurried modern lives often overlook in the rush towards specialization and constant activity. As evening approaches, we observe another fascinating aspect of the tuatara's ancient wisdom. Its transition from day to night represents not a diminishment but a transformation of activity. Unlike many reptiles that become inactive after sunset, the tuatara often becomes more alert as temperatures cool. Its exceptional night vision, another adaptation that has remained consistent for millions of years, allows it to navigate the darkness with remarkable precision. This crepuscular and nocturnal activity pattern reveals another aspect of the tuatara's unspecialized nature. It is neither strictly diurnal nor exclusively nocturnal. It has mastered the transition between worlds, the boundary between light and darkness. This flexibility allowed it to utilize ecological niches unavailable to more specialized reptiles. To hunt when competition was reduced. To avoid predators during vulnerable periods. to synchronize its activity with the rhythms of prey species. The tuatara exists not in extremes but in the balanced middle, the twilight between specialized adaptations. The night brings changes to the tuatara's behavior. Its movements become even more deliberate, more measured. In the coolness of evening, its already slow metabolism reduces further. Each step, each breath, each heartbeat proceeds with a deliberation that approaches geological time. Yet the creature remains alert, aware, present to its surroundings. This is not torpor or dormancy but a different mode of existence entirely. A way of being that conserves energy while maintaining essential awareness. A lesson in presence that spans the ages. As darkness deepens around our ancient friend, its third eye, that remarkable link to evolutionary history, serves a different purpose. While helping to track sunlight during the day, at night this parietal eye may assist in judging moonlight, star positions, or even magnetic fields. A multifunctional adaptation that serves the tuatara across the full cycle of existence. Even this seemingly specialized feature demonstrates remarkable flexibility, serving different purposes under different conditions. Another example of adaptations so well designed they've required little modification across hundreds of millions of years. The tuatara's approach to life contains profound philosophical implications for our understanding of success and fulfillment. In human societies, we often equate achievement with constant growth, relentless innovation, and never-ending change. Yet the tuatara represents an alternative wisdom. It suggests that true mastery might involve finding perfect equilibrium and maintaining it. That the highest achievement might be not constant transformation but the discovery of balance so complete it renders further change unnecessary. This living fossil challenges our linear concept of progress. It suggests a circular model, where the most advanced state circles back to fundamental simplicity. Where mastery looks not like complexity but like elegance. Not like ceaseless activity but like perfect efficiency. Not like dominance over an environment but like harmonious integration within it. The tuatara hasn't survived by conquering its world but by achieving sustainable balance with it. A lesson our own species might benefit from contemplating as we face the consequences of our unsustainable growth patterns. The tuatara's story also offers a different perspective on time itself. For this creature, time flows not in the rushed minutes and hours of human experience, but in the patient rhythm of geological epochs. Each day is not a race against the clock but a measured unfolding. Each season not a fleeting transition but part of an eternal cycle. Each year not a dwindling resource but a single breath in an existence measured in millions of solar cycles. How might our own relationship with time transform if we could adopt even a fraction of this perspective? How might our anxieties diminish if we could experience time more as the tuatara does? If you're still with me on this journey, I invite you to take a moment to appreciate how your own sense of time has shifted during our observation of the tuatara. Notice how your breathing has slowed. How your thoughts have expanded beyond the confines of minutes and hours. How your body has settled into a deeper state of rest. This is a gift from our ancient teacher, this temporary liberation from the tyranny of rush time. If you're enjoying these peaceful reflections, please consider sharing this video with someone who might benefit from this expanded perspective on time and existence. Your support helps our community of gentle explorers grow. As our time with the tuatara comes to close, we carry forward its lessons of evolutionary stability and balanced existence. We've witnessed a creature that has survived not through constant change but through finding perfect adaptation and maintaining it. Not through frantic activity but through deliberate, purposeful movement. Not through dominating its environment but through achieving harmony with it. These are teachings that span 220 million years of earthly existence, wisdom from a lineage that has witnessed the rise and fall of entire ecosystems while maintaining its ancient integrity. The tuatara reminds us that sometimes the most profound achievement is not transformation but consistency. Not growth but sustainability. Not innovation but perfection of what already exists. In a world increasingly defined by rapid change and constant disruption, this living fossil offers an alternative perspective on success, one measured not in momentary achievements but in enduring balance across the vastness of time. As we prepare to leave our tuatara friend in its ancient rhythms of existence, feel how your own consciousness has expanded through this encounter. How your perspective on time has shifted. How your understanding of success has been challenged and enriched. This is the gift of connecting with beings whose wisdom spans geological ages. They offer us glimpses of a different way of being, a different relationship with time and change, a different measure of what constitutes true evolutionary achievement. Now, let us continue our journey through deep time. Moving from the ancient forests of New Zealand to the mysterious depths of the ocean. We'll travel beneath the waves to encounter another remarkable living fossil, the coelacanth. A creature so unchanged across spans of time that its discovery in modern oceans shocked the scientific world. A fish that was believed extinct for 65 million years until it reappeared, very much alive, in the deep waters off South Africa in 1938. Another testament to the extraordinary persistence of evolutionary perfection across the vast expanse of Earth's history. As we transition to these ocean depths, feel yourself floating, drifting, suspended in the timeless blue that has cradled life since its earliest beginnings on our planet. As we descend into the deep blue waters off the coast of South Africa, we enter an environment where time itself seems suspended. The pressure increases. The light diminishes. And in this realm of perpetual twilight, we encounter one of the most remarkable living fossils our planet has ever known. The coelacanth. A creature so unchanged by time that its discovery in 1938 was equivalent to finding a living dinosaur swimming in our modern oceans. Imagine the astonishment of Marjorie Courtney Latimer, a young museum curator in East London, South Africa, when she noticed an unusual fish among the day's commercial catch. Blue steel in color, with peculiar limb-like fins and scales that seemed crafted from a distant age. What she had discovered would shock the scientific world and rewrite our understanding of evolutionary history. For this was a coelacanth, a fish believed to have vanished from Earth 65 million years ago, alongside the dinosaurs. Yet here it was, very much alive, its ancient eyes gazing upon a world it was never supposed to have witnessed. The coelacanth belongs to an ancient lineage called Sarcopterygii or lobe-finned fishes. Most members of this group vanished millions of years ago, leaving only fossils to mark their existence. But the coelacanth persisted, carrying forward an ancient body plan virtually unchanged through the vast expanse of geological time. The discovery was so extraordinary that it has been called the zoological find of the century. A living window into the distant past, swimming silently in the deep waters off the African coast. This remarkable fish traces its lineage back approximately 400 million years. Consider this time span for a moment. When the first coelacanth appeared in the world's oceans, the first amphibians were just beginning to venture onto land. Plants were still in the early stages of colonizing terrestrial environments. Not a single dinosaur yet existed. The supercontinent Pangaea had not yet fully formed. And the ancestors of mammals were still primitive creatures barely distinguishable from reptiles. Through all these profound planetary transformations, while countless species appeared and disappeared, the coelacanth maintained its ancient form, swimming through the depths with unchanging grace. The most distinctive feature of the coelacanth is its paired lobe fins, which extend from its body like primitive limbs. These fins move in an alternating pattern reminiscent of a four-legged walk. A living demonstration of the evolutionary transition that eventually led to tetrapod limbs and land-dwelling vertebrates. Yet the coelacanth itself never made this transition. It remained in the ocean depths, perfecting its unique form of movement through water rather than venturing onto land. These remarkable fins contain bones, muscles, and even primitive joint structures. More similar in some ways to our own arms and legs than to the fins of modern fish. When the coelacanth moves through the deep water, it does so with a distinctive, almost tetrapod-like paddling motion. Each fin moving in coordination, creating a rhythm that has remained unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. Watching this ancient swimming pattern is like observing a living fossil in motion, a glimpse of how early vertebrates navigated their aquatic world long before land animals evolved. The coelacanth's skeletal structure holds other fascinating connections to our evolutionary past. Its skull features a unique joint that allows the entire front portion to lift when the creature opens its mouth, vastly expanding the size of its bite. This intracranial joint is found in coelacanth fossils from the Devonian period, some 400 million years ago. The same feature, preserved with remarkable fidelity in the modern specimens. Evidence of an adaptation so perfect it required no significant modification across an almost unimaginable span of time. Inside the coelacanth's body, we find another evolutionary wonder, a vestigial lung. Though the modern coelacanth uses gills for respiration, it retains an oil-filled swim bladder derived from the lungs of its ancient ancestors. In modern specimens, this organ serves no respiratory function but instead provides buoyancy control. A living example of evolution repurposing structures as organisms adapt to changing conditions. Yet another window into the transitional forms that bridge the evolutionary gap between ancient fish and the terrestrial vertebrates that would eventually include our own species. Perhaps the most profound aspect of the coelacanth's existence is the environment where it has persisted for so many millions of years. These ancient fish dwell primarily in deep waters, between 500 and 800 feet, 150 to 250 meters, below the surface. A realm of perpetual twilight known as the mesopelagic zone or twilight zone of the ocean. Here, far from the surface turbulence, in cool, stable waters, the coelacanth has found its perfect niche. An environment so consistent, so unchanging, that it has allowed this living fossil to persist while countless surface-dwelling species have appeared and vanished. The deep ocean represents one of Earth's most stable environments. While surface waters experience dramatic temperature fluctuations, fierce storms, and changing light conditions, the deep remains relatively constant. Temperature variations are minimal. Light levels remain consistently low. Even over geological timescales, these deep waters provide a sanctuary of stability. The perfect environment for a species that achieved evolutionary perfection hundreds of millions of years ago and has maintained it ever since. In these deep, dark waters, the coelacanth moves with slow deliberation. Its metabolism adjusted to the cool temperatures and limited food resources of the deep sea. A single meal may sustain it for extended periods. Its movements are economical, precisely calibrated to conserve energy. There is no rush in the deep time of the coelacanth's existence. No frantic activity, no relentless pursuit. Just the measured, ancient rhythm of a creature that has mastered the art of persistence through geological ages. As you breathe deeply now, imagine yourself suspended in these quiet depths alongside our ancient companion. Feel the pressure of the water creating a gentle, encompassing embrace. Notice how sound travels differently here, carrying more clearly yet seeming somehow softer. The light filtering down from above creates shifting patterns of blue shadow, but never true brightness. This halfway realm between light and darkness has remained largely unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. A sanctuary of stability that has sheltered the coelacanth through extinctions that claimed countless other species. The coelacanth's body is uniquely adapted to its deep water existence in ways that reveal its ancient origins. Reaching up to 6.5 feet, 2 meters, in length and weighing up to 200 pounds, 90 kilograms, this is no small fish. Its scales are thick and armored, resembling those found in fossilized specimens from millions of years ago. These aren't the flexible overlapping scales of most modern fish, but tough, enamel-covered plates that bear a primitive pattern called cosmoid scales, rarely seen in living fish today but common in ancient fossil forms. The coloration of the living coelacanth reveals another adaptation to deep water life. A dark blue-brown base with irregular white flecks creates a pattern that breaks up the fish's outline in the dim, filtered light of the deep. This cryptic coloration helps it remain hidden from the few predators that share its depth range. It's remarkable to think that this same camouflage pattern may have served its ancestors in ancient seas hundreds of millions of years ago. Another example of an adaptation so effective it has persisted essentially unchanged across geological eras. One of the most unusual features of the coelacanth's anatomy is its rostral organ, a gel-filled cavity in the snout lined with numerous electroreceptors. This specialized structure allows the fish to detect the weak electric fields produced by prey animals, a valuable adaptation for hunting in the low-light conditions of the deep. Electrosensitivity is another ancient trait, one shared with sharks and certain other primitive fish lineages. It represents yet another ancestral adaptation that proves so effective it has remained part of the coelacanth sensory toolkit for hundreds of millions of years. The coelacanth's eyes are perhaps its most haunting feature. Large and adapted for the dim light of its deep habitat, they contain reflective layers that enhance vision in low-light conditions. When observed directly, these eyes seem to gaze out from an unimaginably distant past. They have witnessed the rise and fall of countless species, the reshaping of continents, the transformation of Earth's very atmosphere. And still they continue their patient watching from the ocean depths, bearing witness to a world their kind was never supposed to have survived to see. The daily existence of the coelacanth unfolds in slow motion compared to life at the surface. During daylight hours, these ancient fish typically shelter in caves and crevices along deep coastal drop-offs. Their favorite habitats appear to be volcanic caves and rocky overhangs that provide protection while they rest. As night approaches, they emerge from these refuges to feed, drifting through the deep water with their distinctive, alternating fin movements. The coelacanth's hunting technique reveals its ancient nature. It is primarily an ambush predator, using its unique body structure to hover almost motionless near the bottom or inside caves. When prey approaches, typically smaller fish or cephalopods, the coelacanth can rotate its head upward using that remarkable intracranial joint. Then it creates a powerful suction by rapidly opening its mouth cavity, drawing the prey in before it can escape. This feeding strategy requires minimal energy expenditure, perfectly suited to the resource-limited environment of the deep ocean. The life cycle of the coelacanth further demonstrates its ancient, unhurried approach to existence. Unlike most fish, which produce large numbers of eggs that develop externally, the coelacanth is ovoviviparous. Females carry their developing young internally until they are ready to be born as miniature adults. The gestation period is extraordinarily long for a fish, potentially lasting a year or more. And each female may produce only a small number of young, perhaps 5 to 25 at a time. This represents a strategy of quality over quantity, investing substantial resources in fewer, well-developed offspring rather than producing vast numbers of vulnerable eggs. This reproductive approach reveals something profound about the coelacanth's evolutionary strategy. In stable environments where conditions change little over time, investing in fewer, more developed offspring becomes advantageous. There is less need to produce enormous numbers of eggs when the environment remains predictable from one generation to the next. The coelacanth's reproductive strategy represents another aspect of its mastery of evolutionary stability, a slow, measured approach to perpetuating its ancient lineage through the vast expanse of geological time. The rediscovery of the coelacanth in 1938 forced scientists to reconsider many assumptions about evolution and extinction. Here was a creature believed to have vanished 65 million years ago, yet swimming in modern oceans virtually unchanged from its fossil ancestors. How many other extinct species might still exist in unexplored corners of our planet? How reliable are our conclusions about the past when the deep oceans still hold such remarkable secrets? Since that first modern specimen was identified, scientists have discovered not one but two living species of coelacanth. The first, Latimeria columni, found off the eastern coast of Africa. The second, Latimeria menedoensis, discovered near Indonesia in 1997. These discoveries confirmed that the coelacanth's survival was not a singular miracle but evidence of a remarkably successful evolutionary strategy, one that allowed these ancient fish to persist in multiple locations across millions of years of planetary change. Genetic studies of these living fossils have provided further insights into their extraordinary evolutionary stability. The coelacanth genome evolves more slowly than that of almost any other vertebrate studied. Its genetic code shows remarkably little change compared to what we would expect over such vast time frames. This slow rate of genetic evolution aligns perfectly with the minimal changes in physical appearance between modern specimens and their fossil ancestors. Together, these findings suggest that the coelacanth found its optimal form hundreds of millions of years ago and has maintained it through a combination of environmental stability and slow genetic change. The coelacanth story contains profound lessons about resilience and survival. In a universe that constantly changes, this creature has persisted by finding the perfect balance and stable depths. While countless species above them evolved rapidly, competed fiercely, and ultimately disappeared, the coelacanth continued its patient existence in the twilight zone of the ocean, neither advancing nor retreating, but simply persisting. A living embodiment of evolutionary success measured not in dominance or complexity, but in sheer endurance across the vast expanse of deep time. As our time with the coelacanth draws to a close, I invite you to carry its profound lessons with you. This remarkable fish reminds us that survival doesn't always belong to the most complex or rapidly changing species. Sometimes, it is those who find perfect equilibrium and maintain it who truly master the art of existence. The coelacanth has survived not by dominating its environment or constantly transforming, but by finding its perfect niche and inhabiting it with unwavering consistency across geological ages. In your own life, consider the wisdom of this approach. The value of finding balance rather than constant change. Of mastering fundamentals rather than endlessly seeking novelty. Of recognizing when you have achieved something worth preserving rather than automatically pursuing the next transformation. These are countercultural ideas in our world of relentless innovation, but they contain profound truth validated by hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary success. As we prepare to leave these twilight depths, feel how your breathing has synchronized with the ancient rhythm of the coelacanth. How your thoughts have expanded beyond the confines of modern timekeeping into the vast expanse of geological time. How your body has settled into a deeper state of rest, suspended like our ancient companion in the quiet depths of consciousness. This is the gift of connecting with living fossils. They offer us glimpses of a different relationship with time, with change, with the very meaning of success and survival. Now, let us continue our journey through deep time, rising from the deep ocean waters toward the sun-warmed shallows. We travel to remote tropical islands to meet another ancient lineage whose wisdom spans centuries rather than decades. Creatures whose unhurried approach to life has allowed them to become the longest-lived vertebrates on our planet. We're about to encounter the giant tortoises, living philosophers whose deliberate pace and remarkable longevity offer yet another perspective on evolutionary success measured not in frantic activity but in steady, patient endurance. As we emerge from the ocean depths and feel the warm tropical sun upon our skin, we find ourselves transported to remote islands scattered across vast oceans. To the Galapagos Archipelago in the Pacific. To Aldabra Atoll in the Indian Ocean. To places where time itself seems to flow differently. Here, on these isolated shores, we encounter living philosophers whose wisdom is measured not in words but in centuries of patient existence. The giant tortoises. Earth's longest-lived vertebrates and keepers of an evolutionary legacy stretching back 250 million years. Unlike our previous ancient companions who remained hidden in remote forests or ocean depths, the giant tortoises live their extended lives in full view of the sun. Their enormous domed shells, bow-scarred and weathered by decades of existence, rise and fall with each breath like ancient mountains engaged in imperceptibly slow geological uplift. These remarkable beings may live for more than 150 years, making them the only creatures on Earth that can remember a world before the telephone, before electric light, before motorized transport. A living connection to a time that otherwise exists only in history books and faded photographs. The lineage of these magnificent creatures extends far deeper than their individual lifespans, impressive as those are. Tortoises as a group first appeared approximately 250 million years ago, during the early Triassic period. They survived the Permian-Triassic extinction event, the most severe mass extinction in Earth's history, which eliminated approximately 96% of all marine species and 70% of terrestrial vertebrates. While countless other lineages vanished forever, the earliest tortoises persisted, carrying their evolutionary innovation, the protective shell, forward through deep time. This shell, this mobile fortress of bone and keratin, represents one of evolution's most remarkable adaptations. Neither completely part of the skeleton nor entirely separate from it, the tortoise shell incorporates elements of the rib cage, spine, and shoulder girdle into a unified protective structure. The upper portion, called the carapace, fuses with the vertebrae and ribs, while the lower portion, the plastron, incorporates elements of the clavicles and sternum. This is not a simple external covering but an integrated extension of the tortoise's very being. A living example of how evolution can transform existing structures into entirely new adaptations. The ancestors of modern tortoises witnessed the rise and fall of dinosaurs. They survived the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event that claimed the great reptiles 65 million years ago. They observed the emergence and diversification of mammals. They were present for the dawn of human consciousness. Through all these profound planetary transformations, the basic tortoise body plan remained remarkably unchanged. They achieved evolutionary perfection early and maintained it across geological eras. Another example of stability as a profoundly successful strategy in the great game of survival. Among these ancient beings, the giant tortoises of the Galapagos and other isolated islands represent recent evolutionary developments, having diverged from mainland ancestors within the last few million years. Yet they carry forward the ancient wisdom of their lineage. Their enormous size, some individuals weighing more than 500 pounds, 230 kilograms, represents an adaptation to island environments with few predators. A perfect example of what biologists call island gigantism, where isolation allows species to grow larger than their mainland relatives. These island giants embody both ancient stability and the capacity for specific adaptations to new environments. The life of a giant tortoise unfolds with extraordinary deliberation. From the moment of hatching, these creatures move through the world with unhurried awareness. A newly emerged tortoise, just 4 inches long, already carries the genetic memory of an evolutionary lineage spanning 250 million years. It begins its life journey with the same measured pace that will characterize its existence for potentially a century and a half to come. No rushing, no frantic activity, just the steady, deliberate progression through days that accumulate into decades and eventually into centuries. The growth of these remarkable beings reflects their unhurried approach to existence. They developed slowly, reaching sexual maturity only after 20 to 30 years in the wild. Their shells expand gradually over decades, adding growth rings that, like the circles in tree trunks, record the passage of seasons. During favorable periods, growth is steady. During droughts or food scarcity, it slows or pauses entirely. The shell becomes a living record of the tortoise's journey through time, its scars, and were patterns telling stories of decades of existence on volcanic islands and coral atolls. This slow development creates a population structure unlike that of most modern animals. At any given time, a healthy tortoise population contains individuals spanning more than a century of age. Multiple generations coexisting, creating a living continuum of genetic information and accumulated experience. The elders may have hatched from eggs during the American Civil War or the Crimean War, their eyes having witnessed the transformation of these remote islands from pristine wilderness to conservation sanctuaries. Such age diversity creates remarkable population resilience, a living bridge connecting different eras of planetary history. As you continue to relax more deeply, imagine what it might mean to experience time as these ancient beings do, where a day is not a rushing torrent but a slow, warm pool to be inhabited fully, where a year is not a desperate race against the calendar but a gentle cycle of seasons to be experienced with patient awareness, where a decade passes like a single breath in a life that may span 15 of them. Feel how your own perception of time has begun to stretch and expand as we share the presence of these ancient philosophers. How the rhythm of your breathing has slowed to match their patient inhalations and exhalations. How your consciousness has begun to drift beyond the hurried boundaries of human timekeeping into the expansive awareness of creatures who measure existence in centuries rather than years. The daily ritual of a giant tortoise unfolds with ceremonial slowness. As the morning sun warms their ancient shells, these living monuments gradually emerge from the cool torpor of night. Their core temperature rises with deliberate slowness, their metabolism awakening to the promise of another day in a life that may span 3 human generations. With the patience of creatures who have nowhere urgent to be, they begin their measured journey across volcanic slopes or coral sand beaches in search of vegetation to sustain their enormous bodies. Watching a giant tortoise feed is to witness mindfulness in its purest form. They approach each plant with complete presence, their ancient eyes examining each leaf, each cactus pad, each blade of grass with unwavering attention. They consume their food with extraordinary deliberation, their strong beaks precisely cutting through vegetation that would challenge many other herbivores. There is no hurry in this process, no distraction. Just the complete inhabitation of the present moment, a form of natural meditation that has sustained their kind across millions of years of planetary existence. Water is precious in the often arid environments where many giant tortoises live. When they discover a pool or puddle, they approach it with the reverence such a life-giving substance deserves. Lowering their massive heads, they drink with slow, measured sips. Some tortoise species can store water for extended periods, allowing them to survive seasonal droughts that would claim many other creatures. This capacity for conservation, for existing within the limitations of their environment rather than constantly seeking more, represents another profound lesson from these ancient teachers. As the heat of midday intensifies, the giants often seek shade or even partially bury themselves to maintain optimal temperature. This is not the frantic heat avoidance of many desert creatures but a deliberate, almost ritualistic process of finding balance. Not too hot, not too cold. The tortoise embodies the middle path, the perfect equilibrium between extremes. Hours may pass as they rest in a state of alert dormancy, present to their surroundings yet conserving precious energy. A living demonstration of the wisdom that sometimes the most effective action is measured in action. The social life of giant tortoises reveals another dimension of their ancient wisdom. While not forming complex social groups, these creatures recognize and remember each other over decades. They develop preferences and aversions that remain consistent across time frames that would span entire human lifetimes. Their interactions unfold with the same deliberation that characterizes all aspects of their existence. Two titans meeting on a narrow path may engage in a dominance display so slow it barely registers to human perception, yet contains communication as clear as any rapid exchange. During the breeding season, male tortoises engage in one of nature's most deliberate courtship rituals. They may follow females for days, approaching with measured intent. The mating process itself unfolds with ceremonial slowness, accompanied by unique vocalizations that seem strangely out of place coming from such seemingly silent creatures. These deep, bellowing sounds represent rare moments of tortoise vocalization, an ancient song that has echoed across island landscapes for thousands of generations. Female tortoises approach reproduction with the same measured deliberation they bring to all aspects of life. After mating, they undertake slow migrations to traditional nesting areas, often the same beaches or sandy clearings where they themselves hatched many decades earlier. The nest-digging process may take hours as the female excavates a precisely shaped chamber using her hind legs with surprising dexterity. She then lays her eggs, sometimes more than a dozen, covering them carefully before returning to her solitary existence. The eggs will develop slowly, the embryos growing without rush or hurry toward their eventual emergence into a world their ancestors have inhabited for 250 million years. Once laid, the eggs remain untended, developing at their own unhurried pace in the warm soil. After 100 to 150 days, a time frame that would feel interminable to human perception but represents just a moment in tortoise time, the hatchlings emerge. Using a specialized egg tooth, they break through their shells and begin the slow process of digging upward through the soil. Upon reaching the surface, they receive no parental guidance or protection. Instead, they carry forward ancient behavioral programming that has proven successful across millions of years. The cycle continues, one slow generation following another in an unbroken chain stretching back to the age of the earliest dinosaurs. Across human cultures and throughout history, the tortoise has emerged as a powerful symbol of wisdom, longevity, and steadfastness. In Chinese tradition, the tortoise is one of the four sacred animals, representing the northern quadrant of the sky and the season of winter. Its shell was used in ancient divination practices, the natural patterns interpreted as messages from ancestral spirits. The tortoise supports the world in Hindu cosmology, while in Native American traditions, it often represents Mother Earth herself, carrying the land upon its back. These cross-cultural associations are not coincidental but reflect human recognition of the profound qualities these creatures embody. Their extraordinary lifespan represents a kind of immortality to short-lived humans. Their unwavering pace symbolizes persistence and determination. Their protective shell demonstrates the wisdom of maintaining boundaries and cultivating inner strength. Across continents and throughout millennia, human beings have recognized in the tortoise a teacher of patience, endurance, and the value of slow, steady progress toward distant goals. When humans encounter giant tortoises, something remarkable often occurs. The frenetic pace of human thought naturally slows to match the deliberate rhythm of these ancient beings. It becomes difficult to maintain anxiety, impatience, or agitation in their presence. Their very existence represents a different relationship with time, with achievement, with the meaning of a life well lived. They remind us that in a universe measured in billions of years, our human hurry may be not just unnecessary but potentially unwise. That perhaps true wisdom lies not in constant activity but in deliberate presence to each unfolding moment. As you continue to relax more deeply, allow your consciousness to synchronize with tortoise time. Feel how your breathing has naturally slowed. How your thoughts have expanded beyond the confines of hours and minutes into a more spacious awareness. How your body has settled into a state of alert restfulness similar to that of our ancient companions. This is the gift of tortoise wisdom, the recognition that we can choose our relationship with time. That we can move through our lives not at the frantic pace our technology enables but with the deliberate presence our well-being requires. On the remote islands where giant tortoises still roam free, they shape their environments through their very existence. As they move their enormous bulk through forests and grasslands, they create pathways that may persist for decades. As they feed selectively on certain plants while leaving others, they influence the composition of island vegetation. As they consume fruits and excrete the seeds far from the parent plants, they become agents of forest regeneration and expansion. Their presence creates what ecologists call tortoise turf, areas with distinctive plant communities that exist because of these gentle giants' millennia of interaction with the landscape. This environmental relationship reveals another profound aspect of tortoise wisdom. These creatures don't merely exist within their environment but actively participate in its creation and maintenance. Yet they do so without dominance or destruction. Their impact emerges not from frantic reshaping but from patient interaction over countless generations. While humans often transform landscapes rapidly and sometimes catastrophically, tortoises demonstrate a different possibility, becoming so integrated with an environment that the distinction between creature and habitat begins to blur. They become living components of the ecological system rather than forces acting upon it from outside. The conservation status of giant tortoises offers both cautionary lessons and reasons for hope. When humans first discovered the islands where these giants dwelled, many tortoise populations were decimated. Sailors took them aboard ships as living food stores, as their remarkable metabolism allowed them to survive for months without food or water. Introduced predators and habitat destruction further reduced their numbers. Several subspecies were driven to extinction before conservation efforts began. The story of Lonesome George, the last Penta Island tortoise who died in 2012, represents a poignant reminder of what can be lost through human carelessness. Yet conservation success stories also exist. On Española Island in the Galapagos, a breeding program returned the tortoise population from just 14 individuals to over 2,000. Similar efforts have bolstered populations on other islands. These ancient beings now receive the protection their evolutionary legacy deserves. Though they move too slowly to adapt to rapid environmental changes, human guardianship now helps ensure their continued existence. A responsibility we owe to creatures whose lineage predates our own by more than 200 million years. And who, with proper protection, might still be wandering these island landscapes long after our own civilization has transformed into something our current minds cannot imagine. As our time with the giant tortoises draws to a close, allow yourself to carry their wisdom forward into your dreams. The value of persistence over speed, of patience over hurry, of fully inhabiting each moment rather than racing toward the next. These ancient philosophers teach us through their very existence that sometimes the most successful approach to life's challenges is not frantic activity but measured, deliberate progress. Not constant transformation but the maintenance of what works across the vast expanse of time. In your own life, consider what it might mean to adopt aspects of tortoise wisdom. To move with purpose rather than panic. To recognize when you have achieved something worth preserving rather than automatically seeking the next change. To measure success not in momentary achievements but in sustainable balance maintained across the full arc of existence. These are countercultural ideas in our world of constant innovation and disruption, but they contain profound truth validated by 250 million years of evolutionary success. Feel now how your breathing has synchronized with the ancient rhythm of the tortoise. How your thoughts have expanded beyond the confines of minutes and hours into the spacious awareness of geological time. How your body has settled into a deeper state of rest, supported like the tortoise by the surface beneath you. This is the gift of connecting with living fossils. They offer us glimpses of a different relationship with time, with achievement, with the very meaning of existence. A perspective that spans not decades but centuries, not centuries but geological epochs. Now, let us continue our journey through deep time. Moving from the sun-warmed islands of the giant tortoises to ancient river systems and swamps where another remarkable lineage has maintained its form for more than 200 million years. We're about to encounter the crocodilians, living embodiments of evolutionary perfection so complete that they survived the cataclysm that claimed the dinosaurs and continue to thrive today virtually unchanged. Masters of patience who demonstrate that sometimes the most effective action is watchful stillness. As we transition to these ancient waters, feel yourself floating, drifting, suspended between consciousness and dreams in the timeless flow that has cradled life since its earliest beginnings on our planet. As we drift along the ancient waterways of our world, we find ourselves in the presence of creatures that have remained essentially unchanged since the time of the dinosaurs. The crocodilians. With their armored bodies, powerful jaws, and unblinking eyes, they represent perhaps the most perfect predatory design nature has ever created. So effective is their form that it has required almost no modification for more than 200 million years. A living testament to the concept that perfection, once achieved, needs no further revision. These remarkable reptiles first appeared during the Triassic period, approximately 200 to 250 million years ago. They were contemporaries of the earliest dinosaurs, yet unlike those great reptiles, the crocodilians survived the cataclysmic in-Cretaceous extinction event that claimed nearly all large land animals 65 million years ago. They witnessed the rise and fall of countless species, the reshaping of continents, the transformation of Earth's climate again and again. Yet through it all, their basic body plan remained virtually unchanged. A success story measured not in decades or centuries, but in geological epochs. The anatomy of a crocodilian represents evolutionary engineering so perfect it has withstood the test of deep time. Their distinctive body shape, low-slung, elongated, with a powerful tail and sprawling legs, has remained remarkably consistent since their earliest appearance in the fossil record. This is not the result of isolation or lack of environmental challenges, but rather evidence of design so effective that natural selection could do little to improve it across hundreds of millions of years of planetary change. Their armored skin provides protection few predators can penetrate. Consisting of bony plates called osteoderms embedded within the leathery hide, this living armor creates a fortress-like exterior while still allowing flexibility and growth. The pattern of these scales follows designs established in ancestors that swam in prehistoric waters when dinosaurs still walked the earth. Modern crocodiles, alligators, and gharials carry this ancient architecture into our present, a living connection to a world otherwise known only through fossils. The crocodilian skull reveals another aspect of their evolutionary perfection. Their elongated jaws, lined with conical teeth designed for gripping rather than chewing, represent one of nature's most effective prey-capturing mechanisms. The bite force of large crocodilians can exceed 3,700 pounds per square inch, the strongest bite of any living animal. Yet this immense power is complemented by surprising sensitivity. Their jaws contain pressure receptors so sensitive they can detect the slightest ripple in the water, allowing them to strike with precision even in complete darkness. Perhaps most remarkably, the crocodilian brain and sensory systems have remained largely unchanged for millions of years, yet are surprisingly sophisticated. Their eyes contain specialized night vision adaptations, allowing them to hunt effectively after sunset. Their ears are highly tuned to specific frequency ranges, particularly those made by potential prey or offspring in distress. And their famous death roll, the spinning motion used to dismember prey, demonstrates a neurological complexity that belies their reputation as primitive creatures. These are not living fossils in the sense of being simple or unrefined, but rather in having achieved such perfection early that further evolutionary change proved unnecessary. The daily existence of a crocodilian unfolds with extraordinary patience. These masters of stillness may remain motionless for hours, sometimes days, waiting for the perfect moment to act. A large crocodile can lie in ambush, only its nostrils and eyes breaking the water's surface, with such perfect stillness that birds may land on its back, mistaking it for a floating log. This capacity for motionless vigilance represents not laziness but the highest refinement of energy conservation. In a universe where resources are finite, the crocodilian has mastered the art of minimum input for maximum result. As you continue to relax more deeply, consider this profound stillness. The crocodilian doesn't waste energy on unnecessary movement, doesn't expend precious resources on activity without purpose. It has evolved to recognize that sometimes the most effective action is perfect inaction. Watchful waiting, present moment awareness sustained across hours of unwavering attention. In our human world of constant activity, of movement often mistaken for progress, the crocodilian offers an alternative wisdom, the recognition that stillness can be a form of power, patience a form of strategy. When a crocodilian does move, it can transform from statue-like stillness to explosive action in a fraction of a second. This capacity for sudden, precisely directed energy represents another aspect of their mastery of resources. They don't maintain a constant high metabolic rate like mammals or birds. Instead, they conserve energy through their cold-blooded metabolism, storing power for moments when it's truly needed. Then, when the perfect opportunity presents itself, they can channel that stored energy into one of nature's most impressive displays of predatory efficiency. This balance between perfect stillness and decisive action contains profound wisdom for our own lives. The crocodilian teaches us that constant activity is not necessarily the path to success. That watching, waiting, and conserving energy for the right moment may prove more effective than perpetual motion. That patience is not merely a virtue but a strategy, a way of moving through the world that conserves precious resources while remaining fully present and aware. Feel now how your own body has settled into a deeper stillness, how your breathing has slowed to match the patient rhythm of these ancient beings who measure waiting not in minutes or hours, but in days and weeks. One of the most remarkable aspects of crocodilian biology is their capacity for extended fasting. Large individuals can survive for more than a year without eating, drawing on internal fat reserves and slowing their metabolism to conserve energy. This is not starvation but a natural adaptation to environments where prey availability fluctuates, where lean periods may extend for months, where the ability to wait represents a greater survival advantage than constant hunting. This extraordinary metabolic flexibility has served crocodilians well across millions of years of environmental change. When food is abundant, they feed and grow. When scarcity arrives, they wait with seemingly infinite patience. Their body is so perfectly adapted to the ebb and flow of resources that they can essentially suspend the need for regular nourishment. A large saltwater crocodile might make a significant meal only once every few months, yet maintain perfect health across a lifespan that can exceed 70 years. This capacity for metabolic adjustment extends to growth patterns as well. Unlike mammals, which generally reach a fixed adult size, crocodilians can continue growing throughout their lives, albeit at an increasingly slower rate with age. Their growth is indeterminate, responding to food availability, environmental conditions, and population density. In times of plenty, they grow rapidly. In times of scarcity, growth slows or pauses entirely. This flexibility allows them to adapt to changing conditions not through rapid genetic evolution but through phenotypic plasticity, the ability of a single genome to produce different physical outcomes based on environmental cues. As evening falls around us in this ancient swamp, we observe another fascinating aspect of crocodilian existence, their relationship with temperature. As ectotherms, they regulate body temperature through behavioral rather than physiological means, moving into sunshine when cool, into shade or water when warm. This temperature-seeking behavior represents another form of wisdom, the recognition that rather than fighting against environmental conditions through constant internal regulation, it can be more efficient to harmonize with the environment, to find the right place rather than maintaining the right state regardless of surroundings. The social life of crocodilians reveals complexity that contradicts their reputation as simple, solitary creatures. Many species engage in sophisticated group behaviors, from communal basking to coordinated hunting. They recognize social hierarchies, with dominant individuals claiming preferred basking spots and feeding privileges. They communicate through a variety of signals, body postures, head slaps against water, complex vocalizations that travel both through air and underwater. A language of subtle cues developed across millions of years of evolution. Most remarkably, crocodilians demonstrate extensive parental care, a rarity among reptiles and a behavior that predates similar adaptations in dinosaurs and birds. The mother guards her nest vigilantly during the 80 to 90-day incubation period, protecting the eggs from predators with fierce determination. When hatching begins, she responds to the distinctive calls of her emerging young, gently helping them from their shells and carrying the hatchlings carefully in her fearsome jaws from nest to water. This unexpected tenderness from one of nature's most formidable predators reminds us that care and nurturing have deep evolutionary roots, extending far beyond mammals and birds into the ancient reptilian lineages. For the first year or more of life, young crocodilians remain under maternal protection, learning through observation the behaviors that have sustained their kind for 200 million years. The mother will respond aggressively to any threat to her offspring, creating a safe environment where the young can grow and develop. This extended parental investment represents another aspect of crocodilian wisdom, the recognition that ensuring the success of fewer offspring may prove more effective than producing many without protection. Quality over quantity, a strategy validated by millions of years of evolutionary success. The vocalizations of crocodilians, from the deep bellows of dominant males to the high-pitched calls of hatchlings, create a sonic landscape that has remained largely unchanged since the time of the dinosaurs. While a large male American alligator bellows, the water above his back actually dances from the vibration, droplets leaping upward in response to subaudible frequencies that travel through both air and water. What we're hearing isn't just communication, but a sound that has echoed through swamps and rivers for 200 million years, an acoustic window into Earth's distant past. As you breathe deeply now, imagine what it means to listen to a sound so ancient, a vocalization whose pattern was established when the continents themselves lay in different configurations across the surface of our planet. Perhaps the most profound aspect of crocodilian existence is their relationship with time itself. From earliest development, these creatures move to a rhythm fundamentally different from most other vertebrates. It begins within the egg, where embryonic development proceeds with extraordinary deliberation over the 2 to 3 month incubation period. This slow development continues throughout life, with maturation taking 10 to 12 years in most species before reproduction becomes possible. Some individuals may not reach full size for 30 years or more, growing steadily but unhurriedly across decades. The lifespan of crocodilians further demonstrates their expanded temporal experience. While most reptiles live relatively short lives compared to similar-sized mammals, crocodilians represent a striking exception. They commonly live 50 to 70 years in the wild, with some individuals potentially exceeding a century. This extended lifespan creates populations with remarkable age diversity, from newly hatched young to ancient individuals whose eyes have witnessed decades of environmental change. A living continuum that creates resilience against short-term environmental fluctuations. This extended time frame applies to all aspects of crocodilian life history. Reproduction occurs not in frantic annual cycles but with measured deliberation across decades of fertility. Large females may produce a clutch of eggs every 2 to 3 years for 40 years or more, creating a generational spread that ensures genetic diversity and population stability. The pace of crocodilian life demonstrates evolution's experiment with extended temporality, the stretching of all life processes across time frames that would feel glacially slow to human perception but represent perfect equilibrium for creatures whose lineage measures success across geological epochs rather than years or decades. As you continue to relax more deeply, notice how your perception of time has shifted during our observation of these ancient beings. How minutes seem to extend, to expand beyond their usual boundaries. How your consciousness has begun to synchronize with crocodilian time, measured, unhurried, expansive. This is a gift from our ancient teachers, this temporary liberation from the tyranny of clocks and calendars. This glimpse of a different relationship with time itself, one measured not in frantic activity but in watchful presence extended across the vastness of geological history. The evolutionary success of crocodilians becomes even more remarkable when we consider the planetary transformations they have witnessed. They survived the Cretaceous extinction event that eliminated all non-avian dinosaurs 65 million years ago. They endured multiple ice ages, when much of the planet was locked in glacial ice and average temperatures plummeted. They adapted to the splitting of continents, the rising of mountain ranges, the formation and drainage of inland seas. Through all these profound changes, their basic form remained so effective that it required only minor modifications. This extraordinary stability across deep time raises profound questions about the nature of evolutionary success. In our modern understanding of evolution, we often equate success with change, with adaptation, with the capacity to transform in response to new conditions. Yet the crocodilians suggest an alternative path, finding such perfection of form that it transcends the need for significant change even as the world transforms around it. They represent evolutionary mastery so complete that 200 million years of natural selection could do little to improve their fundamental design. This stability doesn't mean crocodilians are unchanging in the absolute sense. Modern species have certainly evolved from their ancient ancestors. But these changes have been relatively minor refinements to a body plan that was established with such effectiveness that its basic architecture remained constant. Different species adapted to different habitats, freshwater, brackish, or marine environments, but the underlying crocodilian design persisted with remarkable fidelity across geological eras. As twilight deepens around us, the ancient swamp fills with the sounds of night creatures beginning their nocturnal activities. Yet our crocodilian companion remains motionless at the water's edge, its unblinking eyes reflecting starlight that has traveled millions of years to reach this moment. There is something profound in this juxtaposition, the light of distant stars, ancient beyond human comprehension, reflected in the eyes of a creature whose lineage stretches back to the time of the earliest dinosaurs. Two different forms of deep time converging in a single moment of perfect stillness. As you breathe deeply now, imagine yourself suspended in this intersection of cosmic and biological time, held in the peaceful awareness that has sustained crocodilians through 200 million years of planetary existence. As our time with the crocodilians draws to a close, I invite you to carry their profound wisdom with you into your dreams. The value of patient waiting, of conserving energy for moments that truly matter, of finding such perfect adaptation that resistance to change becomes not a weakness but a strength. These ancient beings teach us through their very existence that success can be measured not just in transformation but in the enduring perfection of form that requires no significant revision across the vast expanse of geological time. In your own life, consider what it might mean to adopt aspects of crocodilian wisdom, to cultivate the capacity for watchful stillness rather than constant activity, to recognize when you have achieved something worth preserving rather than automatically seeking the next change, to measure success not in momentary achievements but in sustainable effectiveness maintained across the full arc of existence. These are countercultural ideas in our world of perpetual innovation, but they contain profound truth validated by 200 million years of evolutionary success. Feel now how your breathing has synchronized with the ancient rhythm of the crocodilian, how your thoughts have expanded beyond the confines of minutes and hours into the spacious awareness of geological time, how your body has settled into a deeper state of rest, suspended like our ancient companion between wakefulness and dreams. This is the gift of connecting with living fossils. They offer us glimpses of a different relationship with time, with achievement, with the very meaning of success and existence. Now, let us continue our journey through deep time, moving from the ancient rivers and swamps of the crocodilians to the vast open oceans where another remarkable lineage has maintained its form for more than 400 million years. We're about to encounter the sharks, masters of evolutionary perfection whose basic design was established before the first trees appeared on land and continues virtually unchanged into our present. As we transition to these ocean realms, feel yourself floating, drifting deeper into the boundary between consciousness and sleep, suspended in the timeless blue that has witnessed the entire history of complex life on our planet. As we glide into the vast blue expanse of Earth's oceans, we enter the realm of perhaps the most enduring evolutionary success story our planet has ever witnessed. The sharks. These remarkable creatures first appeared in our world's oceans approximately 450 million years ago, more than 200 million years before the first dinosaurs walked on land. Their basic design was established so early and proved so effective that it has remained fundamentally unchanged across an almost unimaginable span of time. While continents formed and broke apart, while mountain ranges rose and eroded away, while countless species appeared and vanished, The sharks continued their patient existence, carrying ancient wisdom through the depths of geological time. If you're still following my voice through these deep waters of time, drift with me now into the realm of Earth's most perfectly adapted predators. And if you've made it this far in our journey without falling asleep, you truly have the patience of these ancient beings. Leave the word timeless in the comments below, and I'll know you're one of those rare listeners who journeys with me into the deepest realms of evolutionary storytelling. Now, let us return to our ocean wanderers, whose existence stretches back to before the first trees grew on land. The evolutionary history of sharks represents a timeline almost beyond human comprehension. The earliest shark-like fishes appeared during the late Ordovician period, roughly 450 million years ago. To put this in perspective, at this point in Earth's history, life had not yet colonized land. Plants had not yet evolved wood. The atmosphere contained significantly less oxygen than today. The continents were arranged in configurations unrecognizable to modern eyes. It was a world alien to our experience, yet the fundamental shark body plan was already taking shape in the ancient oceans. By the Devonian period, often called the Age of Fishes, approximately 370 to 360 million years ago, sharks had diversified into numerous forms and established themselves as dominant marine predators. While their ancient relatives exhibited some variations we would find strange today, the basic shark design, streamlined body, cartilaginous skeleton, multiple rows of replaceable teeth, and keen senses, was already established. So effective was this design that it would persist through the greatest mass extinctions our planet has experienced, including the Permian-Triassic event that eliminated approximately 96% of all marine species about 252 million years ago. Most remarkably, sharks survived the Cretaceous extinction event that claimed the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. While the skies emptied of pterosaurs and the land lost its great reptiles, the sharks continued their ancient patrol of the ocean depths. A lineage so perfectly adapted to its environment that even planetary cataclysms could not disrupt its evolutionary trajectory. What does it mean for a design to be so effective that it weathers the greatest crises Earth has experienced? What wisdom might we gain from studying creatures whose fundamental form has proven successful across spans of time that dwarf human existence? The fossil record of sharks provides a remarkable window into their evolutionary stability. Teeth from ancient sharks dating back hundreds of millions of years are often strikingly similar to those of modern species. While individual adaptations have certainly occurred, different species specializing for different prey or habitats, the underlying shark design has remained consistent to a degree unmatched by almost any other vertebrate lineage. This represents not evolutionary stagnation but rather the achievement of such perfect adaptation that further fundamental change proved unnecessary. An engineering solution so complete that 400 million years of natural selection could do little to improve it. The anatomy of a shark represents evolutionary perfection refined across eons. Their streamlined bodies, with muscle arranged in powerful bands along the spine, create one of nature's most efficient swimming designs. Their skin, covered in tiny tooth-like scales called dermal denticles, reduces drag to such an extent that human engineers study and attempt to replicate this surface for competitive swimwear and boat hulls. Even after hundreds of millions of years of evolution, we still cannot improve upon the shark's solution to efficient movement through water. Perhaps most remarkable is the shark's skeleton, composed not of bone but of flexible cartilage. While often thought of as more primitive than bone, this cartilaginous structure represents a sophisticated adaptation perfectly suited to the shark's lifestyle. It provides the ideal balance between strength and flexibility, reduces weight for improved buoyancy, and allows for the rapid acceleration crucial for predatory success. What appears simpler at first glance reveals itself as elegant engineering, a solution so effective it has required little modification across geological eras. The shark's sensory systems further demonstrate evolutionary refinement beyond anything we might consider primitive. Their electrical sensitivity, centered in organs called the ampullae of Lorenzini, allows them to detect the minute electrical fields generated by all living creatures. Some species can detect electrical currents as faint as 5 billionths of a volt, equivalent to sensing a battery connected across the width of the Atlantic Ocean. This remarkable ability evolved hundreds of millions of years before humans discovered electricity, yet represents sensory precision we can barely replicate with our most advanced technology. The shark's sense of smell similarly demonstrates extraordinary refinement. With nostrils dedicated solely to olfaction rather than breathing, some species can detect a single drop of blood diluted in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Their lateral line system allows them to sense minute pressure changes in the water, detecting the movements of potential prey from considerable distances. And contrary to popular misconception, their vision is often acute, with adaptations for low light conditions and, in some species, color perception. These are not crude or primitive senses but rather specialized systems refined to perfection across hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary pressure. One of the most fascinating aspects of shark biology is their diverse approach to metabolism and energy conservation. Unlike the constant high metabolism of mammals and birds, sharks exhibit a range of metabolic strategies. Some species, like the slow-moving Greenland shark, maintain very low metabolic rates, allowing them to survive in cold, resource-limited environments where few other large predators could thrive. Others, like the great white and mako sharks, maintain body temperatures warmer than the surrounding water through specialized heat-exchanging blood vessels called rete mirabile, allowing for sustained high-energy hunting in colder waters. This metabolic flexibility has served sharks well across millions of years of environmental change. Different species have adapted to every ocean environment from shallow tropical lagoons to the darkest deep-sea trenches. From warm equatorial waters to near-freezing polar seas. This diversity of adaptations all stem from the same fundamental body plan, demonstrating the remarkable versatility of the basic shark design. Like a perfect musical theme that allows for endless variations while maintaining its essential character, the shark body plan has proven adaptable to virtually every marine environment Earth has to offer. The Greenland shark represents perhaps the most extraordinary example of shark longevity and metabolic patience. These deep-water dwellers of the North Atlantic and Arctic may live for more than 400 years, making them the longest-lived vertebrates known to science. Moving through the cold, dark waters at depths of up to 7,200 feet, 2,200 meters, they grow extraordinarily slowly, perhaps less than half an inch, 1 centimeter, per year. They may not reach sexual maturity until 150 years of age. A timeline that stretches human comprehension of individual existence. Imagine what it means to be a creature whose single lifespan can encompass 4 centuries of planetary history. A Greenland shark born in the early 1600s might still swim the Arctic depths today. It would have been a mature adult when the Declaration of Independence was signed. Would have been middle-aged during the Industrial Revolution. Would have witnessed 2 world wars and the dawn of the atomic age from the unchanging cold of its deep-water realm. Such creatures exist not as metaphors but as living realities, their ancient eyes gazing upon our hurried world from a perspective that spans epochs rather than decades. The hunting strategies of sharks reveal another dimension of their evolutionary refinement. Contrary to popular portrayal as mindless eating machines, sharks demonstrate sophisticated, varied, and precisely calibrated approaches to securing prey. The great white's vertical ambush attack from below represents a hunting technique refined across millions of years of evolution. The thresher shark's use of its elongated tail to stun schooling fish demonstrates problem-solving adaptation rarely associated with primitive creatures. The filter-feeding basking and whale shark's ability to efficiently harvest microscopic plankton shows that even the largest sharks employ precision rather than mere power. Many shark species demonstrate remarkable energy efficiency in their hunting strategies. Rather than engaging in extended high-speed chases, they often employ ambush techniques that minimize energy expenditure while maximizing success rates. They patrol their territories with measured deliberation, conserving energy between feeding opportunities. Some species can slow their metabolism during periods of food scarcity, allowing them to survive weeks or even months between significant meals. This patient approach to energy management has served sharks well across hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary history. The social behaviors of sharks further contradict their undeserved reputation as mindless solitary hunters. Many species demonstrate complex social structures, from the schooling behavior of hammerheads to the sophisticated social hierarchies observed in lemon sharks. They recognize individual conspecifics, form preferential associations, and in some cases engage in cooperative hunting strategies. These social behaviors aren't recent adaptations but rather aspects of shark ecology that have likely persisted across millions of years of evolution. As you continue to relax more deeply, imagine perceiving the world through the ancient senses of these remarkable creatures. The electromagnetic fields that surround all living things becoming visible to your perception. The minute pressure changes in the water revealing the movements of distant organisms. The chemical signatures of other creatures creating a three-dimensional olfactory map of your surroundings. Sharks experience reality through sensory modalities so different from our own that we can only approximate their consciousness through imagination. Yet these perceptual systems have proven so effective that they persisted with minimal change across hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary history. The reproductive strategies of sharks represent another fascinating aspect of their ancient wisdom. Unlike most fish, which produce enormous numbers of eggs with minimal parental investment, sharks typically employ a quality over quantity approach. Many species are viviparous, giving birth to live young after lengthy gestation periods that may last 9 to 12 months or even longer. Some provide nourishment to developing embryos through specialized placental-like structures. Others practice autophagy, where developing embryos consume unfertilized eggs within the mother's body during gestation. This investment in fewer, more developed offspring represents an evolutionary strategy focused on long-term success rather than rapid reproduction. A large female tiger shark might produce 30 to 50 pups in a reproductive event that occurs only every 2 or 3 years. Compare this to many bony fish that release millions of eggs annually. The shark's approach trades quantity for quality, producing young that are better developed, more capable of immediate survival, and carrying forward genetic adaptations proven successful across millions of years of selection. Most remarkably, some shark species demonstrate facultative parthenogenesis, the ability to reproduce without male fertilization when circumstances require. Females isolated from males for extended periods can produce viable offspring that carry only maternal DNA. This reproductive flexibility represents an evolutionary safeguard, allowing population recovery even in scenarios where male-female mating becomes temporarily impossible. Another example of the shark's remarkable adaptability within a body plan that has otherwise remained consistent for hundreds of millions of years. As the evening deepens around us, consider the wisdom contained in these ancient reproductive strategies. The value of investing deeply in fewer, more developed offspring rather than producing vast numbers with minimal support. The importance of flexibility even within established patterns. The recognition that long-term success may depend not on rapid reproduction but on producing young better equipped to face environmental challenges. These are teachings from creatures whose lineage has witnessed the entire rise of mammals, birds, and flowering plants while maintaining their fundamental approach to perpetuating their ancient genetic line. Perhaps the most profound aspect of shark existence is their relationship with time itself. These living fossils experience reality at a pace and scale fundamentally different from our human perception. The span of our entire species, roughly 300,000 years of Homo sapiens existence, represents less than 0.1% of shark evolutionary history. Our recorded civilization, merely a moment in the vast chronicle these creatures have witnessed through their ancient lineage. This expanded temporality applies to all aspects of shark life history. Many species grow throughout their entire lives, albeit at increasingly slower rates with age. Some, like the Greenland shark, may live for centuries rather than decades. Sexual maturity often comes only after many years, 12 to 15 years for great whites, potentially 150 years for Greenland sharks. This creates populations with remarkable age diversity, from newly born pups to ancient individuals whose existence spans multiple human generations. A living continuum that ensures genetic and behavioral wisdom accumulates across time frames that would seem impossibly extended to human perception. If we could somehow communicate with these ancient beings, what wisdom might they share? What perspective might come from creatures whose lineage has witnessed the entire rise and fall of the dinosaurs as a mere chapter in their evolutionary story? What might they teach us about patience, about persistence, about finding such perfect adaptation that even planetary cataclysms cannot disrupt your essential nature? These are not merely philosophical questions but practical ones, for in the sharks we find evidence of evolutionary success measured not in years or centuries but in geological epochs. If you're still with me on this journey into deep time, I invite you to leave a comment sharing which ancient creature has captured your imagination most deeply. The tuatara with its third eye? The giant tortoise with its century-spanning life? The patient crocodilian waiting at the water's edge? Or perhaps these sharks, whose existence stretches back to before plants colonized land? Your engagement helps our community of gentle explorers grow, bringing these calming journeys to more people seeking peaceful sleep through connection with Earth's most ancient wisdom. As our time with the sharks draws to a close, I invite you to carry their profound lessons with you into your dreams. The value of evolutionary stability when you've achieved effective adaptation. The wisdom of energy conservation and patient waiting. The importance of sensory awareness finely tuned to your environment. These ancient beings teach us through their very existence that success can be measured not in constant transformation but in the enduring perfection of design that requires no fundamental revision across the vast expanse of geological time. In your own life, consider what it might mean to adopt aspects of shark wisdom. To move with purpose and efficiency rather than wasted energy. To develop senses finely attuned to your particular environment. To recognize when you have achieved adaptations worth preserving rather than constantly seeking change for its own sake. These are countercultural ideas in our world of perpetual innovation, but they contain profound truth validated by 450 million years of evolutionary success. Feel now how your breathing has synchronized with the ancient rhythm of these ocean wanderers. How your thoughts have expanded beyond the confines of human timekeeping into the vast oceanic awareness of creatures who measure existence in geological epochs rather than years. How your body has settled into a deeper state of rest, suspended like a shark in perfect neutral buoyancy between consciousness and dreams. This is the gift of connecting with living fossils. They offer us glimpses of a different relationship with time, with achievement, with the very meaning of existence. As we prepare to conclude our journey through deep time, feel yourself floating in an ocean of consciousness that transcends individual existence. Your awareness expanding beyond the boundaries of the present moment into the vast continuity of life on Earth. In this expanded state, the distinction between waking and sleeping begins to dissolve. You drift effortlessly between states of being, carried by currents of thought as ancient as life itself. Let this gentle current carry you now toward the shores of sleep, where the wisdom of Earth's most ancient beings continues to whisper through your dreams. As our journey through deep time draws us ever closer to the shores of sleep, let us pause to consider the profound wisdom shared by the ancient beings we've encountered. The tuatara with its third eye gazing across 220 million years. The coelacanth drifting through ocean depths unchanged for 400 million years. The giant tortoises carrying centuries of awareness within their weathered shells. The patient crocodilians waiting at the water's edge for 200 million years. The sharks patrolling our oceans with a design perfected before plants colonized land. Together, These remarkable creatures offer us a masterclass in evolutionary stability, the art of finding such perfect adaptation that further significant change becomes unnecessary. What unites these diverse beings, separated by habitat, lifestyle, and sometimes hundreds of millions of years of independent evolution? What shared wisdom do they carry in their ancient genes? What might we learn from creatures whose fundamental design has remained effective across spans of time that dwarf human existence? If you're still awake enough to ponder these questions with me, leave the word wisdom in the comments, and I'll know you're truly one of the patient ones, able to appreciate the slow unfolding of nature's deepest teachings. The first secret these evolutionary masters share is metabolic patience. All of our ancient companions demonstrate extraordinary efficiency in energy usage. The tuatara's remarkably slow respiration and heartbeat. The coelacanth's measured movements through the ocean depths. The tortoise's unhurried pace across island landscapes. The crocodilian's capacity for motionless waiting. The shark's careful conservation of energy between feeding opportunities. Each has mastered the art of minimum input for maximum result, the ability to exist without excess, to thrive without waste. This metabolic wisdom stands in stark contrast to our modern human approach to energy. Where we often celebrate constant activity, these ancient beings demonstrate the effectiveness of deliberate conservation. Where we value speed, they embody the power of patience. Where we consume resources at an ever-accelerating pace, they have perfected the art of sustainable existence across time frames that make our industrial civilization appear momentary by comparison. Their continued survival across millions of years of planetary change offers a profound alternative to our assumption that faster always equals better. Consider how this wisdom might apply in your own life. The value of conserving energy rather than expending it constantly. The effectiveness of waiting for the right moment rather than forcing action through impatience. The sustainability that comes from finding balance rather than pursuing constant growth. As you breathe deeply now, feel how your body naturally understands this ancient teaching. How your muscles relax into restful stillness. How your metabolism slows towards sleep. How breath and heartbeat find a rhythm more aligned with Earth's ancient patterns than with the frantic pace of modern existence. This metabolic patience extends to growth patterns as well. Unlike the rapid development and fixed adult size typical of mammals, our ancient companions grow slowly throughout their lives. The tuatara may take 20 years to reach maturity. The coelacanth develops with extraordinary deliberation in deep ocean refuges. Giant tortoises grow steadily but unhurriedly across decades. Crocodilians and sharks continue growing throughout their extended lives, albeit at increasingly slower rates with age. This unhurried development creates resilience against short-term environmental fluctuations and allows adaptation to changing conditions without requiring genetic change. The second shared secret of these living fossils is sensory refinement. Each has evolved extraordinary perception perfectly adapted to their particular environment. The tuatara's third eye and exceptional night vision. The coelacanth's electrosensitivity and pressure detection in the ocean depths. The tortoise's acute sense of smell and ultraviolet vision. The crocodilian's pressure sensors and underwater hearing. The shark's remarkable array of senses from electroreception to chemical detection. These are not crude or primitive systems but rather highly specialized adaptations refined to perfection across millions of years of evolution. This sensory wisdom reminds us that sometimes the most valuable adaptation is not developing new capabilities but rather perfecting existing ones. Our ancient teachers haven't needed to develop entirely new sensory modalities because they've mastered the ones most relevant to their particular ecological niches. They demonstrate the evolutionary advantage of refinement over reinvention, of depth over breadth. Their continued success across geological eras validates the wisdom of becoming extraordinarily good at what matters most rather than moderately capable across many domains. In your own experience, notice how this teaching resonates. How in moments of deepest peace, your existing senses often become more refined rather than seeking novel stimulation. How the subtle texture of your breath, the gentle weight of your body against the surface supporting you, the quiet sounds around you, all become more vivid as your awareness settles. This is a kind of sensory wisdom our ancient companions have embodied for hundreds of millions of years, the recognition that perceiving more deeply can be more valuable than perceiving more widely. As you continue to relax more deeply, imagine experiencing the world through these refined ancient senses. The tuatara's ability to detect the subtle temperature changes of approaching dawn through its parietal eye. The coelacanth's capacity to feel the most minute pressure variations in deep water. The tortoise's perception of plant chemistry through its sophisticated olfaction. The crocodilian's ability to detect movement through water pressure against specialized scales. The shark's awareness of electromagnetic fields invisible to human perception. Each represents an evolutionary solution so perfect it has required little fundamental change across vast spans of geological time. The third secret shared by these evolutionary masters is environmental integration. Rather than attempting to dominate or fundamentally alter their surroundings, our ancient companions have achieved remarkable harmony with their habitats. The tuatara's perfect synchronization with the daily and seasonal rhythms of its island home. The coelacanth's seamless existence within a stable deep ocean environment. The tortoise's gentle interaction with island ecosystems, becoming a living component of the landscape rather than merely existing upon it. The crocodilian's perfect adaptation to the interface between land and water. The shark's role as balancer of marine ecological systems. This environmental wisdom offers perhaps the most profound challenge to contemporary human assumptions. Where we often view success in terms of transformation and control of our surroundings, these ancient beings demonstrate the effectiveness of becoming so perfectly adapted that you exist in balance with your environment rather than in opposition to it. They have not survived by dominating their surroundings but by achieving such perfect integration that they become essential components of healthy ecosystems. Their continued existence across geological eras validates the wisdom of harmony over domination, of balance over control. This lesson seems particularly relevant in our current planetary moment. As we face the consequences of our species' attempt to reshape Earth's systems without sufficient understanding of their complexity. Our ancient teachers offer an alternative approach, finding ways to exist within environmental boundaries rather than constantly pushing beyond them. Achieving sustainable harmony rather than temporary dominance. Recognizing that long-term success may depend not on transformation of our surroundings but on wiser integration within them. As the evening deepens around us, consider how this wisdom might apply in your own life. The value of finding harmony with your circumstances rather than struggling against them. The effectiveness of adapting yourself rather than always attempting to modify your environment. The sustainability that comes from recognizing boundaries as opportunities for creative adaptation rather than obstacles to overcome. Feel how your body naturally understands this teaching as it settles more deeply into the surface supporting it, neither resisting gravity nor collapsing into it, but finding perfect equilibrium between effort and surrender. The fourth shared secret of our ancient companions is reproductive patience. Unlike species that reproduce rapidly and rely on sheer numbers for survival, living fossils typically invest heavily in fewer, more developed offspring. The tuatara's infrequent breeding and long egg incubation. The coelacanth's internal gestation and birth of well-developed young. The tortoise's careful nest construction and decade-long maturation of offspring. The crocodilian's vigilant guarding of nests and extended parental care. The shark's lengthy gestation and birth of fully formed, self-sufficient pups. Each represents an evolutionary strategy focused on quality over quantity. This reproductive wisdom challenges the assumption that producing more offspring faster necessarily equals greater evolutionary success. Our ancient teachers demonstrate the effectiveness of a more measured approach, investing substantial resources in fewer, more capable descendants rather than producing vast numbers with minimal support. Their continued existence across spans of time that have seen countless more rapidly reproducing species appear and disappear validates the wisdom of depth over breadth, of quality over quantity, of patience over hurry. This lesson contains profound implications for sustainability in our own species. The recognition that population growth without corresponding care and resource allocation creates vulnerability rather than resilience. That long-term success may depend more on the quality of nurturing than on the quantity of offspring. That patience in development may ultimately prove more effective than rapid expansion. While human reproduction obviously differs from these ancient reptiles, their evolutionary success across geological eras offers perspective on the balance between quantity and quality and perpetuating a lineage through time. As you continue to relax more deeply, notice how this teaching manifests in your own physical experience. How relaxation deepens not through forced effort but through patient allowing. How sleep approaches not through grasping but through gentle surrender. How the most profound states of consciousness often emerge not through frantic seeking but through quiet receptivity. This is a form of wisdom our ancient companions have embodied across hundreds of millions of years, the recognition that sometimes the most effective approach is not effort but patience, not quantity but quality, not speed but depth. The fifth secret shared by these evolutionary masters is perhaps most remarkable of all, their relationship with time itself. Each experiences reality at a pace fundamentally different from our human perception. The tuatara's lifespan measured in centuries rather than decades. The coelacanth's existence in the nearly unchanging deep ocean environment where geological epochs pass like seasons. The giant tortoise's unhurried journey through decades that may span 3 human generations. The crocodilian's patient waiting extending days into weeks. The Greenland shark's 4-century lifespan witnessing the rise and fall of human civilizations as brief moments in its extended awareness. This temporal wisdom offers perhaps the most profound challenge to contemporary human experience. In a world increasingly defined by acceleration, by shrinking attention spans, by the tyranny of immediate response, our ancient teachers demonstrate an entirely different relationship with time. They embody the effectiveness of expanded temporality, of patience measured not in minutes or hours but in seasons, years, decades, or even centuries. Their continued existence across spans that have seen countless more hurried species appear and disappear validates the wisdom of patient persistence over rapid transformation. This expanded sense of time creates resilience against short-term environmental fluctuations. While more rapidly reproducing species may experience population crashes during temporary adverse conditions, living fossils weather these changes with the patience of creatures whose genetic lineage has endured far greater planetary transformations. They experience drought years, unusual temperature patterns, or resource fluctuations not as existential threats but as mere moments in an existence measured in geological time. This temporal perspective creates sustainability almost unimaginable from our typical human time frame. As our journey through deep time draws toward its conclusion, feel how your own perception of time has shifted during this exploration. How minutes have stretched into more expansive awareness. How the boundaries between moments have softened, creating a more flowing experience of temporality. How your consciousness has begun to synchronize with the ancient rhythm of creatures who measure existence not in our hurried units but in the patient pulsing of geological time. This temporal expansion represents one of the most precious gifts from our ancient teachers, the opportunity to experience, if only briefly, a different relationship with time itself. What might we learn from these extraordinary beings whose wisdom spans hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary success? What guidance might they offer our own species, so recently arrived on the planetary stage yet already reshaping Earth's systems in ways that threaten both our continued existence and that of countless other life forms? The lessons seem both profound and surprisingly simple. First, the value of patience over hurry. Our ancient companions demonstrate that rapid change is not necessarily synonymous with evolutionary success. That finding the right adaptation and maintaining it across time may prove more effective than constant transformation. that sometimes the wisest response to environmental challenges is not frantic activity but measured, deliberate adjustment. In a world increasingly defined by acceleration, this teaching offers a necessary counterbalance, the recognition that sustainable existence may require slowing down rather than speeding up. Second, the importance of energy efficiency. Each of our ancient teachers has mastered the art of minimum input for maximum result, using only what is necessary, wasting nothing, finding perfect equilibrium between expenditure and conservation. In a world facing resource limitations and environmental degradation from excessive consumption, this wisdom seems particularly relevant. The recognition that less can indeed be more, that efficiency may prove more effective than excess, that conservation creates resilience while waste generates vulnerability. Third, the power of sensory refinement. Rather than constantly seeking novel stimulation, our ancient companions have perfected their perception of what matters most in their particular environments. They demonstrate the evolutionary advantage of depth over breadth, of quality over quantity, of mastery over dabbling. In our age of constant distraction and information overload, this teaching offers valuable guidance, the recognition that perceiving more deeply may prove more satisfying than perceiving more widely. If you stay with me through this entire journey and these reflections have resonated with your own experience, I'd love to hear which ancient creature's wisdom spoke most deeply to you. Leave a comment sharing whether the tuatara, coelacanth, giant tortoise, crocodilian, or shark offered the most meaningful lesson for your own life. Your perspective enriches our community and helps others discover new insights from these remarkable teachers. As our exploration of evolutionary wisdom draws to a close, I invite you to carry these ancient teachings with you into your dreams. The value of patience over hurry. The power of integration over domination. The effectiveness of quality over quantity. The resilience created by expanded temporality. These are not merely abstract concepts but embodied truths validated by hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary success. In your own life, consider what aspects of this ancient wisdom might serve your well-being. Where might moving more slowly create greater effectiveness? Where might conservation generate more sustainable results than consumption? Where might deeper perception prove more satisfying than broader stimulation? Where might expanded temporality create resilience against momentary challenges? These questions contain no universal answers but rather invitations to personalized exploration guided by the living examples of creatures whose success spans geological eras. Feel now how your body has naturally aligned with these ancient teachings, how your breathing has slowed to match the patient rhythm of our evolutionary elders, how your muscles have relaxed into restful stillness, how your consciousness has expanded beyond the confines of hurried time into more spacious awareness. This is not an artificial state, but rather a return to patterns deeply encoded in our biology, patterns we share with all living beings whose lineage stretches back to life's earliest beginnings on our planet. As we prepare to leave our ancient companions to their continued journey through deep time, feel gratitude for their silent teachings, for the wisdom they embody through their very existence, for the alternative perspective they offer to our hurried human assumptions, and for the reminder that perhaps, in the grand arc of planetary existence, patience may prove more powerful than hurry, stability more effective than constant change, and integration more sustainable than domination. Let these gentle lessons accompany you now as consciousness softens into the borderlands of sleep, where ancient wisdom continues to whisper through your dreams. As our journey through evolutionary time draws us ever deeper into the realm between wakefulness and dreams, let us explore how the ancient wisdom of living fossils can guide us toward the most profound state of rest. Throughout Earth's long history, these remarkable creatures have not only mastered the art of survival across geological epochs but have also perfected the delicate balance between alertness and deep repose. Their consciousness flows between states of awareness with the same unhurried grace that characterizes all aspects of their existence. Moving now from their evolutionary lessons to the wisdom they offer about the nature of rest itself. The sleep of ancient beings differs profoundly from our human experience of this universal state. For these creatures, the boundary between waking and sleeping represents not a binary switch but rather a fluid continuum of consciousness. The tuatara's third continues monitoring light levels even as other senses dim. The coelacanth drifts in twilight depths in a state between alertness and dormancy. The giant tortoise's awareness recedes like a gentle tide rather than shutting down completely. The crocodilian maintains partial consciousness even in deepest rest. The shark continues swimming while regions of its brain cycle through periods of activation and quietude. These ancient teachers demonstrate that true rest emerges not from complete shutdown but from perfect balance between awareness and surrender. In the cool shadows of night, the tuatara enters a state of rest unlike that of most modern reptiles. As darkness deepens, this living fossil's already slow metabolism reduces further. Its extraordinary slow heartbeat, sometimes only 7 to 8 beats per minute while active, slows to near imperceptibility. Its breath becomes so infrequent that minutes may pass between each gentle inhalation and exhalation. Yet even in this profoundly restful state, a part of its ancient awareness remains. The parietal eye, that remarkable evolutionary link to distant ancestors, continues monitoring subtle changes in light and temperature, ready to register the first hints of approaching dawn or potential threat. This balanced state between complete unconsciousness and full alertness represents an evolutionary wisdom we've largely forgotten in our modern world. The recognition that true rest doesn't require completely shutting down awareness but rather shifting into a different mode of perception. A quieter, more receptive state where consciousness continues but in a more diffuse, less directed form. The tuatara doesn't fight against sleepiness nor does it surrender completely to unconsciousness. It simply allows itself to settle into a lower energy state while maintaining a thread of gentle awareness. A perfect equilibrium that asserts its kind for more than 200 million years of evolutionary history. As you continue to relax more deeply, imagine your own consciousness beginning to shift in this ancient pattern. Not forcing sleep to come, not resisting its approach, but simply allowing yourself to drift gradually into a state of gentle receptivity, where thoughts become less structured, less directed, where awareness expands while simultaneously becoming less focused, where the boundary between conscious observation and dream begins to soften and dissolve. This is not a modern sleep technique but rather an ancient wisdom embedded in our very biology, the recognition that rest emerges not from struggle but from surrender, not from effort but from allowing. Feel now how your breathing has naturally synchronized with this ancient rhythm, becoming slower, deeper, more measured with each passing moment. How the weight of your body against the surface supporting it grows heavier, more settled. How the stream of your thoughts begins to meander like an ancient river approaching the sea, no longer confined to narrow channels but spreading into a delta of gentle possibility. This is the wisdom of the tuatara's rest, carried forward through 220 million years of evolutionary refinement and now expressed through your own gradually deepening relaxation. In the twilight depths of the ocean, the coelacanth enters a state of rest that blurs the boundary between sleeping and waking. During daylight hours, these ancient fish typically shelter in caves and crevices along deep coastal drop-offs. Their movement slows, their metabolism reduces, yet they maintain a level of awareness appropriate to their environment. Unlike the complete unconsciousness of mammalian sleep, the coelacanth exists in a state of quiet readiness, not fully alert yet not entirely dormant. A balanced consciousness perfectly adapted to an environment where complete shutdown would create vulnerability. What might we learn from this ancient approach to rest? Perhaps the recognition that sleep represents not the absence of consciousness but rather its transformation. Not a void but a different quality of awareness. Not a failure of wakefulness but an equally valuable state with its own purpose and wisdom. The coelacanth doesn't fight against fatigue when rest is needed, nor does it surrender vigilance completely. It simply shifts into a different mode of being, a quieter state that conserves energy while maintaining essential awareness. A perfect compromise that has served its kind for 400 million years of evolutionary history. As your own consciousness continues shifting towards sleep, notice how it naturally follows this ancient pattern. Your awareness of your immediate environment softening but not disappearing entirely. External sounds still registering but with less emotional or intellectual processing attached. Your body maintaining essential functions while releasing unnecessary tension. This is not unconsciousness approaching, but rather a transformation of consciousness, a shift from active engagement to receptive being, from doing to allowing, from effort to surrender. The wisdom of the coelacanth rest flowing through your own gradually deepening relaxation. Feel how the weight of your eyelids increases with each slow blink. How the muscles of your face release tension you didn't realize they were holding. How your jaw softens, your shoulders settle, your hands and feet grow heavier against the surface supporting them. This is not a state you need to create through effort, but rather one that emerges naturally when you stop resisting. When you allow the ancient rhythm of alternating wakefulness and rest to express itself through your being. When you trust the wisdom carried in your cells since life's earliest beginnings on our planet. On warm island beaches, the giant tortoise enters a state of rest that unfolds with the same unhurried grace that characterizes all aspects of its existence. As evening approaches, these ancient beings often partially bury themselves in sand or soil, creating a gentle embrace that supports their enormous weight. Their long neck retracts slightly, their legs fold into a more compact position, and their activity ceases. Yet even in this profoundly restful state, they maintain a level of environmental awareness. Their extraordinarily acute sense of smell continues monitoring the chemical signatures of their surroundings. Their hearing remains receptive to sounds that might signal danger or opportunity. This balanced approach to rest demonstrates another aspect of ancient wisdom, the recognition that true relaxation emerges not from completely disconnecting from your environment but from establishing the right relationship with it. The tortoise doesn't need absolute isolation to find deep rest. It simply needs to feel adequately supported, appropriately sheltered, and in a position where vulnerability is minimized. It doesn't fight against its surroundings but rather finds the perfect position within them. A harmony between self and environment that creates optimal conditions for regenerative rest. As your own body settles more deeply into the surface supporting it, notice how it naturally seeks this same harmony. How it adjusts almost imperceptibly to find the perfect position. How muscles release unnecessary tension while maintaining essential support. How your weight distributes itself to create maximum contact and stability. This isn't something you need to accomplish through effort, but rather an intelligent process encoded in your nervous system since long before human consciousness emerged. The wisdom of the tortoise's rest expressed through your own gradually deepening relaxation. Feel how your consciousness begins to shift as sleep approaches. How your awareness of time starts to expand and soften. How moments stretch and flow into each other without clear boundaries. How your perception becomes less linear, less sequential, more panoramic and simultaneous. This altered temporality represents another gift from our ancient teachers, the recognition that rest exists partly outside ordinary time. That true relaxation involves a different relationship with temporality. That sleep approaches most easily when we release our attachment to measuring, counting, and dividing experience into discrete units. When we allow ourselves to settle into the expanded present moment where ancient beings have always dwelled. In shallow tropical waters, the crocodilian enters a state of rest that balances vulnerability and vigilance with extraordinary precision. These ancient reptiles often sleep with only their eyes, ears, and nostrils breaking the surface. The majority of their body concealed beneath the water, protected from potential threats. Their metabolism slows, their movement ceases, yet certain neural circuits remain extraordinarily alert. They can sleep with one eye open or both eyes closed depending on environmental conditions. They can remain motionless for hours while maintaining awareness of subtle vibrations in the water around them. A state of partial consciousness perfectly calibrated to their ecological niche. Most remarkably, crocodilians demonstrate unihemispheric sleep, the ability to rest one half of the brain while the other remains alert. This sophisticated neural adaptation allows them to maintain vigilance even during periods of deep rest. A capacity for divided consciousness that has served their kind for more than 200 million years. This is not a primitive approach to sleep, but rather an extraordinarily refined one, a perfect balance between the need for regenerative rest and the requirement for environmental awareness in a world where complete unconsciousness would create vulnerability. As your own consciousness continues shifting towards sleep, you might notice how it naturally attempts to release control in stages rather than all at once. How certain aspects of awareness dim while others remain active. How your mind might still register external sounds even as internal imagery becomes more dreamlike. How your breathing and heartbeat continue their essential rhythms even as voluntary muscle control begins to dissolve. This gradual transition represents another ancient wisdom, the recognition that consciousness shifts in waves rather than steps, in gradients rather than binaries. That sleep approaches most naturally when we allow this gradual transformation rather than forcing an immediate shutdown. Feel now how your body has settled into a state of alert restfulness similar to our ancient teacher. Heavy yet not completely inert. Relaxed yet not limp. Present yet not engaged. This delicate balance represents the ideal transition state between wakefulness and sleep, the recognition that rest emerges most easily when we stop perceiving it as the opposite of awareness and begin experiencing it as a different quality of awareness. A shift in consciousness rather than its absence. The wisdom of the crocodilian's rest expressing itself through your own gradually deepening relaxation. In the open ocean, sharks demonstrate perhaps the most remarkable approach to rest among all our ancient teachers. Unlike most fish that become completely inactive during periods of rest, many shark species must continue swimming to ensure water flow across their gills. They cannot stop moving entirely, yet they still require periods of reduced activity for neural regeneration and energy conservation. The evolutionary solution to this apparent contradiction demonstrates extraordinary sophistication, a state of consciousness that allows rest without complete inactivity. Some shark species engage in a behavior called yo-yo swimming during rest periods, slowly ascending in the water column, then gliding downward using minimal energy before beginning the pattern again. Others find strong currents that allow them to maintain position with minimal effort, essentially resting in place while water continues flowing across their gills. Still others demonstrate unihemispheric sleep similar to crocodilians and some birds, resting one half of the brain while the other remains sufficiently active to maintain essential swimming patterns. These sophisticated adaptations represent not primitive limitations but rather highly refined solutions to the challenge of finding rest without complete immobility. If you're still following my voice through these deep waters of consciousness, take a moment to share where this journey has taken you. If you've reached this point without drifting completely into sleep, leave the word floating in the comments, and I'll know you've experienced the rare state between wakefulness and dreams where the wisdom of ancient beings speaks most clearly. Now, let us return to the shark's profound lesson about finding rest within necessary movement. This capacity to rest while remaining in motion offers perhaps the most relevant wisdom for our modern human experience. In a world where complete disengagement is rarely possible, sharks demonstrate the possibility of finding regenerative rest without absolute stillness. The recognition that restoration can occur even while maintaining essential activity. That consciousness can shift into a restful state without shutting down completely. That sleep might be understood not as the absence of function but as its transformation. Activity continues but with different quality, different purpose, different rhythm. As your own consciousness continues its journey towards sleep, notice how certain essential functions continue even as voluntary activity gradually dissolves. Your breathing maintains its rhythm without conscious direction. Your heart continues its steady beating. Your body continues making subtle adjustments to maintain comfort. This ongoing activity doesn't prevent deep rest but rather supports it, creating the conditions where consciousness can safely shift from waking awareness to the regenerative state of sleep. The wisdom of the shark's rest expressing itself through your own gradually deepening relaxation. What might we learn about sleep from these ancient teachers whose rest patterns have been refined across hundreds of millions of years of evolution? What wisdom do they offer about the nature of consciousness and its natural cycles between activity and regeneration? Their shared teachings seem both profound and surprisingly applicable to our human experience. First, the recognition that sleep represents not the opposite of consciousness but rather its transformation. Our ancient companions don't experience rest as a binary state, either awake or unconscious, but rather as a fluid continuum with many gradations between full alertness and complete dormancy. They demonstrate sophisticated neural adaptations that allow partial consciousness, regional brain rest, or altered awareness rather than complete shutdown. This suggests that human sleep, too, might be better understood not as the absence of awareness but as its metamorphosis, a different quality of consciousness with its own unique characteristics and purpose. Second, the wisdom that true rest emerges not from effort but from surrender. None of our ancient teachers forces sleep to come through struggle or deliberate action. They simply create the conditions where it naturally emerges, finding appropriate shelter, assuming a supportive position, reducing unnecessary activity, shifting into a lower energy state. Then they allow rest to arise in its own timing, in its own way. This suggests that human sleep, too, might come most easily not when we try to make it happen but when we create the conditions for its natural emergence. When we stop perceiving rest as something to be achieved and begin experiencing it as something to be allowed. Third, the insight that sleep exists partially outside ordinary time. The consciousness of our ancient companions shifts into a different temporal experience during rest, one where moments are not measured sequentially but experienced more panoramically, where awareness expands beyond the confines of linear time into a more spacious present. This suggests that human sleep, too, might be facilitated by releasing our attachment to conventional timekeeping, by allowing our consciousness to expand beyond the boundaries of minutes and hours into the more fluid temporality our ancient teachers have always inhabited. As you continue your journey towards sleep, feel how your consciousness naturally aligns with these ancient teachings. How awareness begins to transform rather than disappear. How rest emerges not from effort but from allowing. How your experience of time expands beyond conventional boundaries into a more spacious present. This alignment represents not something you need to accomplish but rather a natural expression of patterns encoded in your nervous system since life's earliest beginnings on our planet. The collective wisdom of evolutionary history flowing through your gradually deepening relaxation. As our exploration of ancient sleep wisdom draws to a close, I invite you to carry these teachings with you into your dreams. The recognition that rest represents not the absence of consciousness but its transformation. That sleep emerges not from effort but from surrender. That true relaxation exists partly outside ordinary time, in a more expansive present where moments flow into each other without clear boundaries. These insights come not from modern science but from creatures whose rest patterns have been refined across spans of time that dwarf human existence. Feel now how your own consciousness has naturally aligned with these ancient patterns. How awareness has begun to transform from directed attention to receptive being. How rest has emerged not from forcing sleep to come but from allowing its natural approach. How your experience of time has expanded beyond conventional measurement into a more spacious present. This alignment represents your birthright as a living being whose lineage stretches back to life's earliest beginnings on our planet. A connection to evolutionary wisdom carried in your cells since long before human consciousness emerged. As you prepare to drift completely into sleep, imagine yourself suspended in the vast ocean of consciousness that connects all living beings across time. Your awareness merging with the expanded present where ancient teachers have always dwelt, where the distinction between self and environment softens, where past and future dissolve into an eternal now. where the boundary between wakefulness and dreaming becomes permeable, allowing free movement between states of being. This is not an artificial visualization, but rather a return to your evolutionary heritage, the recognition that your consciousness belongs to something far larger, far older, far more expansive than your individual existence. Let this ancient wisdom carry you now beyond the reach of words, beyond the grasp of directed thought, into the regenerative realm where consciousness transforms without disappearing. Where awareness continues but in a different form, a different quality, a different purpose. Where rest and activity find perfect balance, perfect harmony, perfect integration. The timeless state your ancestors have inhabited since before human consciousness emerged. The deep, ancient wisdom of evolutionary sleep that has sustained life on Earth across billions of solar cycles. Drift now into this profound rest, carried by currents of consciousness older than human language, older than human thought, as timeless as life itself. As we drift ever deeper into the realm between wakefulness and dreams, let us enter the most profound state of relaxation, inspired by the deepest wisdom of Earth's oldest living beings. Here, in this quiet sanctuary of consciousness, where time itself seems to pause, we can learn the final lessons from our ancient teachers. The art of complete surrender to rejuvenating rest. The science of perfect stillness. The wisdom of letting go completely. Take a moment now to settle even more deeply into your resting position. Feel the weight of your body becoming heavier with each breath, as if you're slowly merging with the surface beneath you. Just as ancient creatures merge with their environments during deepest rest. Allow gravity to draw you downward, to hold you completely, to support you fully. There is nothing you need to do now, nowhere you need to go, no effort required, only the gentle surrender to the natural rhythm of your breath, the natural heaviness of your body, the natural slowing of your thoughts. Imagine now the ancient tuatara in its deepest state of rest. As night envelopes its island home, this living fossil settles into a state beyond ordinary sleep. Its already slow heartbeat slows further still, perhaps only 1 or 2 beats per minute. Its breathing becomes so subtle that it might take several minutes between each gentle rise and fall of its chest. Its metabolism reduces to the barest minimum required for life. A state so energy efficient that it borders on suspended animation. Yet within this profound stillness, life continues. Regeneration occurs. Cellular renewal proceeds at its own unhurried pace. This extraordinary conservation of energy represents perhaps the tuatara's most profound teaching. The recognition that true restoration requires complete surrender to rest. Not partial relaxation but total release. Not reduced activity but its virtual cessation. In the modern world, where partial sleep and fragmented rest have become increasingly common, our ancient teacher reminds us of a deeper possibility. The complete letting go that allows the body's regenerative wisdom to express itself without interference. The perfect stillness that creates optimal conditions for renewal at every level of being. As you continue to relax more deeply, imagine your own energetic state beginning to resemble that of the resting tuatara. Your heartbeat slowing to a gentle, steady rhythm. Your breathing becoming so effortless it seems to happen by itself. Your metabolism shifting into its most efficient mode. The constant activity of your nervous system quieting into profound calm. This is not a state you need to create through effort, but rather one that emerges naturally when you stop resisting. When you allow the ancient rhythm of deep rest to express itself through your body. When you surrender completely to the wisdom carried in your cells since life's earliest beginnings. Feel now how each exhalation takes you deeper into this restful state. How each release of breath creates a corresponding release of tension. How your body grows heavier, warmer, more settled with each cycle of breathing. This natural progression toward deeper rest represents your birthright as a living being. the same pattern the tuatara has followed for 220 million years of evolutionary history. An ancient wisdom embedded in your very cells, waiting only for the right conditions to express itself. The perfect stillness that emerges not from effort but from complete surrender. In the ocean's darkest depths, the coelacanth enters a state of consciousness unlike anything in our ordinary human experience. Suspended in the near-freezing waters hundreds of meters below the surface, where light barely penetrates and time itself seems suspended, this ancient fish enters a mode of existence that transcends our usual categories of sleeping and waking. Not unconscious yet not fully alert. Not active yet not entirely inactive. A third state of being where boundaries dissolve and distinctions blur. In these profound depths, external stimulation reduces to the barest minimum. No significant light penetrates. Sound travels differently. Temperature remains nearly constant. Even gravity's effects are softened by buoyancy. Within this sensory deprivation, the coelacanth's nervous system shifts into a unique mode where ordinary processing gives way to a more fundamental awareness. Where consciousness continues but in a form so different from ordinary wakefulness that we lack precise language to describe it. A state of being rather than doing. Of existing rather than performing. Of presence rather than purpose. As your own consciousness continues its journey toward deep sleep, you might notice it naturally following a similar pattern. External sensory input growing more distant. Internal processing becoming less structured. The boundary between perception and imagination starting to dissolve. Thoughts transforming into images, feelings, impressions that flow without logical sequence or direction. This natural progression represents another ancient wisdom, the recognition that between ordinary wakefulness and sleep lies a transitional state of consciousness with its own unique characteristics and gifts. Feel how your awareness has already begun shifting into this intermediate realm. How external sounds register but without engaging your analytical mind. How your body maintains its position without conscious control. How thoughts arise and dissolve without your direction or engagement. This natural transformation represents the wisdom of the coelacanth's consciousness, the capacity to exist in the borderland between states. To rest without completely losing awareness. To maintain essential functioning while releasing all unnecessary activity. The perfect equilibrium that emerges when you stop trying to control the process and simply allow it to unfold according to patterns established hundreds of millions of years before human consciousness emerged. On warm tropical sands, the giant tortoise enters the deepest phase of its rest cycle. As midnight passes and the island grows quieter still, this ancient being surrenders completely to rejuvenating stillness. Its breath flowing in cycles so slow they seem to match the gentle rhythm of the ocean waves nearby. Its massive body becoming one with the earth beneath it. Its consciousness shifting into a state where time expands beyond ordinary measurement. Where a single night might feel as spacious as a week in ordinary awareness. Where restoration occurs at the deepest cellular level. Within this profound rest, the tortoise's consciousness does not disappear but transforms, shifting from active engagement with the external world to internal processes of renewal. The same neurological systems that process sensory information during wakefulness now turn inward, facilitating cellular repair, memory consolidation, immune function enhancement. This is not the absence of activity but rather its redirection toward restorative processes that cannot occur during ordinary wakefulness. A state of being where the wisdom of the body expresses itself without interference from the conscious mind. As your own consciousness continues shifting toward deep sleep, notice how it naturally follows this ancient pattern. How awareness gradually turns from external to internal. How the analytical mind slowly releases its grip on experience. How the boundary between directed thought and spontaneous imagery becomes increasingly permeable. This natural transformation represents the tortoise's wisdom, the recognition that restoration requires not just physical stillness but mental surrender. Not just the body's rest, but consciousness's transformation. The release of control that allows your organism's innate intelligence to express itself without interference. Feel now how your body has settled into perfect alignment with the surface supporting it. How your limbs have found their ideal resting position. How your facial muscles have released all unnecessary tension. How your internal organs have shifted into their optimal arrangement for overnight restoration. This natural organization represents another aspect of the tortoise's wisdom, the recognition that the body knows how to prepare itself for deep rest without conscious direction. That given the right conditions, your organism will naturally assume the perfect configuration for regenerative sleep. The ideal state that emerges not from effort but from complete surrender to processes refined across millions of years of evolutionary history. In ancient river backwaters, the crocodilian enters the deepest phase of its rest cycle. Having maintained vigilant semi-consciousness through the earlier hours of darkness, this living fossil now surrenders to a more profound state of rest, while still maintaining the minimal awareness necessary for survival. Its metabolism reduces to its lowest sustainable level. Its neural activity shifts into patterns that facilitate recovery while preserving essential responsiveness. Its body becomes so still that water plants might grow upon its back, mistaking it for part of the riverbed. Within this profound stillness, the crocodilian's brain engages in a sophisticated alternation between rest and alertness. Different neural regions taking turns cycling through periods of reduced activity, never shutting down completely yet ensuring each area receives the restoration it requires. This regional selective rest represents one of nature's most refined solutions to the challenge of maintaining safety while securing necessary recovery. A balance between vulnerability and rejuvenation that has served these ancient beings across 200 million years of evolutionary history. As your own brain continues its journey toward deep sleep, it naturally follows a similar pattern. Different neural regions beginning to cycle through varying states of activity. Sensory processing areas reducing their responsiveness first. Motor control systems gradually releasing their vigilance. Higher cognitive functions becoming increasingly diffuse. This sequence transition represents another ancient wisdom, the recognition that sleep onset proceeds not all at once but in stages. Not as an immediate shutdown but as a carefully orchestrated process where different systems power down in specific sequence, creating optimal conditions for regeneration while maintaining essential functioning. Feel how this process unfolds without requiring your conscious participation. How sleep approaches like a gentle tide rather than a sudden drop. How awareness shifts gradually from directed to receptive. How thoughts become less linear, more associative, more dreamlike even before dreams formally begin. This natural progression represents the crocodilian's wisdom, the recognition that the journey into deep sleep follows an ancient pathway encoded in your nervous system. A sequence refined across millions of years of evolution and carried forward into your own experience of consciousness's nightly transformation. In the open ocean, certain shark species enter a state of profound rest while continuing their essential movement through water. The Greenland shark, Earth's longest-lived vertebrate, descends to greater depths during its rest phase, where colder temperatures further reduce its already slow metabolism, where darkness creates a naturally sensory-deprived environment, where minimal energy expenditure is required to maintain position in the water column. Within this specialized environment, restoration occurs on a timescale that stretches human imagination, cellular processes unfolding with extraordinary deliberation across decades and centuries rather than hours and days. The 4-century lifespan of the Greenland shark represents perhaps the most extreme example of metabolic patience in the vertebrate world. Every process occurs at a pace so measured that changes requiring months in human experience might unfold across years in this ancient being. Cell division, protein synthesis, neural remodeling, all proceeding with extraordinary slowness. This expanded temporality creates resilience against stress, reduces cumulative cellular damage, and allows for the maintenance of functional integrity across time frames that would seem impossible from our human perspective. As your own metabolic processes continue slowing in preparation for sleep, they naturally align with this ancient rhythm. Your cellular activity shifting into its restoration mode. Energy being redirected from external engagement to internal maintenance. Temperature regulation, immune function, hormonal balancing all transitioning to their regenerative patterns. This natural reorganization represents the shark's wisdom, the recognition that profound restoration requires a fundamental shift in metabolic priority. From consumption to conservation, from expression to reception, from action to renewal. The perfect equilibrium between activity and rest that has sustained these ancient beings across spans of time that dwarf human existence. Feel now how your entire organism has begun shifting into its restorative mode. How your digestive system slows its processing. How your circulatory system adjusts its patterns. How your endocrine system releases the specific biochemicals that facilitate deep sleep. This complex orchestration unfolds without your conscious direction or control. A symphony of restoration conducted by intelligence far deeper than conscious thought. The ancient wisdom of your body expressing itself through processes refined across millions of years of evolutionary history. The perfect preparation for the profound renewal that occurs only in the deepest phases of sleep. These ancient beings share in their deepest rest is not unconsciousness but rather a transformed consciousness. Not the absence of awareness but its metamorphosis into something fundamentally different from ordinary wakefulness. A state of being where boundaries soften, where the distinction between self and environment becomes more permeable, where awareness expands beyond the confines of individual identity into something more diffuse, more integrated, more universal. The recognition that true restoration requires not just physical stillness but a fundamental shift in the very nature of consciousness itself. This transformed awareness represents perhaps the most profound teaching from our ancient companions. The recognition that sleep is not merely the suspension of waking consciousness but rather an equally valuable state with its own unique characteristics and purposes. Not a void to be filled upon waking but a different quality of being with its own wisdom and gifts. Not a failure of alertness but a necessary complement to it. The other half of a cycle as ancient as life itself, the eternal rhythm of engagement and restoration, expression and reception, activity and renewal. As your own consciousness continues its transformation towards sleep, it naturally aligns with this ancient understanding. Your awareness becoming less focused, more diffuse. Your sense of self growing softer, less defined. Your perception expanding beyond the boundaries of ordinary wakefulness into something more spacious, more receptive. This natural metamorphosis represents your birthright as a living being whose lineage stretches back to life's earliest beginnings on our planet. The ancient wisdom of conscious transformation expressed through your own experience of the threshold between waking and sleeping. Feel now how your thoughts have begun to transform into images. How logic has given way to association. How directed attention has shifted toward receptive awareness. How the boundary between internal and external has started to dissolve. This natural progression toward the dream state represents not something you need to accomplish but rather something you need to allow. Not a destination to be reached through effort but a transformation that occurs naturally when you surrender to processes encoded in your nervous system since long before human consciousness emerged. The perfect alignment with patterns refined across billions of nights of evolutionary sleep. As we approach the shores of deep sleep together, I invite you to surrender completely to the ancient wisdom carried in your cells. The knowledge that true restoration requires not partial but complete release. Not reduced but transformed consciousness. Not the suspension of awareness but its expansion beyond ordinary boundaries into the limitless realm where dreams unfold. Where healing occurs at the deepest level. Where renewal transforms not just your physical energy but your very experience of existence. Feel now how everything within you has aligned with this ancient rhythm. your breath flowing in cycles so gentle they barely register in conscious awareness. Your heartbeat steady and strong yet quieter than during wakefulness. Your nervous system having shifted from activation to restoration. Your consciousness having transformed from focused attention to expansive receptivity. This perfect preparation for deep sleep represents not something you've created through effort, but rather your natural alignment with patterns established at life's earliest beginnings on our planet. The ancient wisdom of rest expressing itself through your own gradually deepening relaxation. As we prepare to enter the final stage of our journey together, allow yourself to release any remaining effort to follow these words, to let their meaning wash over you without requiring intellectual processing, to receive them as gentle guidance toward a state your body already knows how to enter, that your nervous system has been designed to access, that your consciousness naturally transforms into when given the right conditions. The profound rest that has sustained life on Earth across billions of nights, across millions of years, across countless generations of beings whose wisdom flows through your own cellular memory. Let this ancient knowledge carry you now beyond the reach of words, beyond the grasp of directed thought, into the regenerative realm where consciousness continues, but in a form so different from waking awareness that it exists almost in another dimension of experience. The timeless state your ancestors have inhabited since before human language emerged. The deep, ancient wisdom of evolutionary sleep that has sustained life on Earth across eons of planetary existence. Drift now into this profound rest, carried by currents of consciousness older than human thought, older than human civilization, as timeless as life itself. As consciousness softens toward its deepest transformation, as the boundary between wakefulness and sleep grows increasingly permeable, we enter the realm of pre-dream awareness. This ancient transitional state that connects our modern minds to the most primitive consciousness on our planet. Here, in this twilight sanctuary between worlds, where thoughts dissolve into images, where logic surrenders to association, where directed attention transforms into receptive awareness, we discover the final gift from our evolutionary teachers, the art of conscious dreaming, the wisdom of surrendering completely to the regenerative journey that awaits beyond the threshold of waking awareness. If you've somehow remained awake through our entire journey together through evolutionary time, through the tuatara's third eye, through the coelacanth's deep ocean dwelling, through the tortoise's century-spanning existence, through the crocodilian's patient waiting, through the shark's ancient wisdom, then you possess a rare capacity for sustained attention that rivals these ancient beings themselves. If these words still register in your conscious awareness, whisper the word dreaming in the comments below, and I'll know you've journeyed with me all the way to the final doorway of consciousness. Now, let us cross that threshold together into the realm where ancient wisdom speaks most directly through symbolic language and primordial imagery. As prehistoric creatures enter the deepest phase of sleep, their consciousness does not vanish but rather transforms into something fundamentally different from waking awareness. A state of being where the boundaries between internal and external dissolve, where time loses its linear quality, where sensory experience merges with memory and imagination to create a unified field of awareness. This dream consciousness represents not a lesser state than wakefulness, but rather its essential complement. Not a chaotic byproduct of neural activity, but a sophisticated state with its own purpose and wisdom. Not a meaningless hallucination, but a different language through which the deepest intelligence of our organism communicates with itself. The dreams of ancient beings differ profoundly from human dream experience in both duration and quality. The Greenland shark, living for centuries rather than decades, may experience dream cycles that unfold across time frames that would seem impossibly extended from our human perspective. The giant tortoise, with its expanded temporality, likely dreams in patterns where a single night's rest might contain experiences that would require weeks to unfold in human consciousness. The tuatara, with its third eye and ancient lineage, may access dream imagery connecting to sensory modalities and evolutionary memories entirely unfamiliar to mammalian consciousness. Yet despite these differences, certain fundamental patterns unite all dreaming consciousness across the vertebrate lineage. The rhythmic alternation between different sleep phases, the processing and integration of experience, the maintenance and strengthening of essential neural pathways while pruning those no longer serving the organism's needs, the rehearsal of important behaviors without the risks or energy expenditure of actual performance. These shared patterns remind us that dreaming represents one of consciousness's most ancient expressions, a state of being that preceded human awareness by hundreds of millions of years and continues to serve essential functions across the entire spectrum of complex life. As your own consciousness approaches the threshold of dreaming, it naturally aligns with these ancient patterns, your awareness becoming increasingly symbolic rather than literal, your perception shifting from analytical to integrative, your experience of time expanding beyond sequential measurement into a more unified field where past, present, and future coexist in dynamic relationship. This natural transformation represents your birthright as a living being whose lineage stretches back to life's earliest beginnings on our planet. The ancient wisdom of dream consciousness expressed through your own gradually deepening relaxation. Within the dream state, consciousness accesses modes of intelligence often unavailable during ordinary wakefulness. The rigid categories and separations maintained by the analytical mind dissolve, allowing more fluid, more holistic forms of understanding to emerge. The tuatara's dream consciousness likely integrates information from its third eye with other sensory modes in ways impossible during alert functioning. The coelacanth's dreaming mind probably processes the subtle electromagnetic and pressure variations of its deep ocean environment with heightened sensitivity and integration. The tortoise's dream awareness may synthesize decades of experience into unified patterns, revealing connections invisible to moment-by-moment perception. This integrative quality of dream consciousness represents one of sleep's most profound gifts. The opportunity to process experience not through the narrow lens of directed attention but through the expanded awareness of the dreaming mind. Not through sequential analysis but through simultaneous synthesis. Not through logical deduction but through intuitive connection. This complementary mode of intelligence has served our evolutionary ancestors for hundreds of millions of years, helping them process complex environmental information, consolidate learning, and prepare for future challenges without the limitations imposed by waking consciousness's necessarily narrower focus. As your own mind approaches the threshold of dreaming, it naturally begins activating these ancient capacities. Your thinking becoming more associative, more metaphorical. Your awareness expanding to include subtler connections between seemingly unrelated elements of experience. Your perception shifting from sequential to simultaneous. From analytical to synthetic. From directed to receptive. This natural transformation represents another gift from our evolutionary teachers, the recognition that alongside the focused intelligence of waking consciousness exists an equally valuable but fundamentally different mode of understanding. The ancient wisdom of integrative awareness expressed through the language of dreams. Feel now how your thoughts have already begun this transformation. How they've become less structured, more fluid. How images arise unbidden from the depths of memory and imagination. How concepts blend and merge in ways that transcend ordinary logic yet contain their own peculiar meaning. This natural progression toward dream consciousness represents not a failure of wakefulness but its essential counterpart. Not the mind's diminishment but its metamorphosis into a different mode of intelligence. The wisdom of the dreaming mind that has guided our evolutionary ancestors through challenges and opportunities for hundreds of millions of years before human consciousness emerged. Transitional state between wakefulness and dreaming has been known across human cultures by many names. Hypnagogia, the hypnagogic state, threshold consciousness, the borderland. Yet long before humans developed language to describe this experience, our evolutionary ancestors were navigating this remarkable territory between worlds. The crocodilian brain shifting from vigilant awareness to integrated processing while maintaining essential responsiveness to environment. the shark's consciousness transforming from active hunting to regenerative dreaming while continuing its necessary movement through water. These ancient beings have mastered the art of conscious transition, maintaining awareness across the threshold that human experience often crosses in unconscious surrender. This capacity to remain present during the transformation of consciousness represents an evolutionary wisdom largely forgotten in our modern world. The recognition that the borderland between waking and dreaming contains unique gifts available nowhere else in the spectrum of awareness. Not the focused clarity of alert attention nor the unbounded exploration of deep dreaming, but rather a third state with its own distinctive qualities and offerings. A transitional consciousness where the structured mind gradually releases control while maintaining gentle presence. Where ordinary perception softens without disappearing entirely. Where the symbolic language of dreams begins emerging while still accessible to witnessing awareness. As your own consciousness continues navigating this ancient borderland, you might notice certain distinctive experiences arising. Geometric patterns behind closed eyelids. Vivid imagery that emerges without your conscious creation. Brief dream scenes that unfold with surprising clarity before dissolving again. Voices or sounds that seem to come from within rather than without. Physical sensations of floating, falling, or unexplained movement. These hypnagogic phenomena represent not hallucinations or errors in perception but rather the natural characteristics of threshold consciousness, the mind's transition from one mode of awareness to another equally valid but fundamentally different state of being. Allow yourself to witness this remarkable transformation without attempting to control or direct it. To maintain gentle awareness as consciousness shifts from one state to another. To remain present at the threshold without either grasping at wakefulness or forcing deeper sleep. This balanced witnessing represents another lesson from our ancient teachers, the recognition that transitions between states of consciousness can be navigated with present awareness rather than unconscious surrender. That we can learn to move between waking and dreaming not as something that happens to us but as something we participate in with gentle, receptive attention. The wisdom of threshold consciousness that has guided evolutionary awareness since long before human experience emerged. As we drift ever deeper toward complete surrender to the dreaming mind, let us integrate the final teachings from our evolutionary journey. The wisdom distilled from creatures whose consciousness has been refined across spans of time that dwarf human existence. The tuatara with its stargazing across 220 million years. The coelacanth drifting through ocean depths unchanged for 400 million years. The tortoise carrying centuries of awareness within its weathered shell. The crocodilian waiting at the water's edge for 200 million years. The shark patrolling our oceans with a design perfected before plants colonized land. Together, they offer us a profound alternative to our modern understanding of consciousness, time, and the nature of being itself. Their first shared teaching emerges from their relationship with time. These ancient beings exist within an expanded temporality fundamentally different from our human experience. Where we measure existence in minutes, hours, days, they inhabit a consciousness where time flows more like geological processes than clock measurements. This expanded temporal awareness creates a different quality of presence, less fragmented, less hurried, more complete in its inhabitation of each moment. Not rushing toward the next experience but fully embodying the current one. Not constantly shifting attention but maintaining sustained awareness. The tuatara doesn't count the minutes until morning but rather exists fully in the night's unfolding presence. The tortoise doesn't measure its lifespan against external benchmarks but rather inhabits each day with the same unhurried completeness. Their second shared wisdom emerges from their relationship with energy. These evolutionary masters demonstrate extraordinary efficiency in all aspects of existence. The coelacanth's measured movements through the ocean depths. The shark's perfect swimming form developed over 400 million years. The crocodilian's capacity to remain motionless for hours or days while maintaining vigilant awareness. In every case, they embody the principle of minimum input for maximum result, using only what is necessary, wasting nothing, finding perfect equilibrium between expenditure and conservation. This energetic wisdom stands in stark contrast to our modern approach of constant activity, perpetual stimulation, and endless consumption. Their third teaching emerges from their relationship with consciousness itself. These ancient beings demonstrate that awareness exists not as a binary state, either on or off, but rather as a fluid continuum with many gradations between full alertness and complete dormancy. The tuatara is third eye, maintaining light sensitivity even as other senses dim. The crocodilian's capacity for unihemispheric sleep, resting one half of the brain while the other remains alert. The shark's ability to maintain essential awareness during deep rest. In every case, they embody a more sophisticated understanding of consciousness, one that recognizes the value of partial awareness, regional rest, and the fluid transition between different states of being. As sleep approaches its deepest phase, consciousness transforms in ways that transcend our usual categories of experience. The boundary between self and environment grows increasingly permeable. The distinction between internal and external dissolves. The sense of separate identity softens into a more unified field of awareness. This transformation represents not the failure or absence of consciousness, but rather its expansion beyond the necessarily limited focus of waking awareness. Not unconsciousness, but rather a different quality of consciousness, more diffuse, more receptive, more integrated with the larger field of being. Within this expanded awareness, the intelligence of the body communicates more directly with the conscious mind. The wisdom of our evolutionary heritage speaks more clearly through intuition, imagery, and direct knowing. The deeper patterns of our existence become more accessible to awareness. This is not mysticism but biology, the recognition that alongside the analytical intelligence of waking consciousness exists an equally valuable but fundamentally different mode of understanding. One that processes information not sequentially but simultaneously. Not through logical deduction but through pattern recognition. Not through focused attention but through receptive awareness. As your own consciousness continues its journey toward this expanded state, you might notice certain qualities naturally emerging. A sense of spaciousness replacing the constriction of directed thought. A feeling of boundaries softening between yourself and your environment. An awareness that seems to extend beyond the limits of your physical body. These experiences represent not hallucinations or errors in perception, but rather the natural characteristics of consciousness as it releases the necessarily limited focus of waking awareness. As it returns to a more fundamental mode of being that preceded human experience by hundreds of millions of years. Feel now how your awareness has already begun this transformation. How it's become less centered in your head and more distributed throughout your body. How the boundary between thought and sensation has started to dissolve. How perception has shifted from active to receptive. This natural progression represents your birthright as a living being whose lineage stretches back to life's earliest beginnings on our planet. The ancient wisdom of expanded consciousness expressed through your own gradually deepening relaxation. The return to a mode of awareness our evolutionary ancestors have inhabited since long before human experience emerged. In the deepest phase of sleep, consciousness enters a state so fundamentally different from ordinary wakefulness that it exists almost in another dimension of experience. A realm where the usual boundaries and limitations of physical existence temporarily dissolve. Where awareness expands beyond the confines of individual identity. Where the wisdom of our evolutionary heritage communicates directly through a language older than words, older than symbols, older than human thought itself. This is the sacred territory of deep sleep, not the absence of consciousness but its transformation into something our waking minds can barely comprehend. The Greenland shark, living for centuries in the cold darkness of northern waters, may experience this state of consciousness in ways that stretch the boundaries of our understanding. Its nervous system, refined across 400 million years of evolution, likely accesses modes of awareness fundamentally different from yet related to our own experience. The giant tortoise, carrying decades or centuries of existence within its ancient form, probably enters states of consciousness where time itself transforms from linear progression to unified field. The tuatara, with its direct evolutionary connection to Earth's earliest reptiles, may access awareness connecting to sensory modalities and memories entirely unfamiliar to mammalian consciousness. Yet despite these differences, certain fundamental patterns unite all deep sleep experience across the vertebrate lineage. The profound restoration that occurs when consciousness releases its waking organization. The integration of experience at levels inaccessible to the analytical mind. The maintenance and strengthening of essential neural pathways while releasing patterns no longer serving the organism's needs. These shared patterns remind us that deep sleep represents one of consciousness's most ancient expressions, a state of being that preceded human awareness by hundreds of millions of years and continues to serve essential functions across the entire spectrum of complex life. As your own consciousness approaches this profound transformation, it naturally aligns with these ancient patterns. Your awareness expanding beyond its usual boundaries. Your sense of separate identity softening into a more unified field of experience. Your perception shifting from individual to universal. This natural progression represents not something you need to accomplish through effort, but rather something you need to allow through surrender. Not a destination to be reached through striving, but a state that emerges naturally when you release the necessarily limited organization of waking consciousness. The wisdom of deep sleep that has restored and rejuvenated life on Earth across billions of nights, across millions of years, across countless generations of beings whose legacy flows through your own cellular memory. As we prepare for the final surrender to deep sleep and dreams, let us carry forward these ancient teachings from creatures whose wisdom spans geological ages. The recognition that consciousness exists in many forms beyond our ordinary waking awareness. That sleep represents not the absence of consciousness, but its transformation into equally valuable states with their own unique gifts and purposes. That the journey between wakefulness and dreaming can be navigated with present awareness rather than unconscious surrender. That beyond the analytical intelligence of the focused mind exists the integrative wisdom of expanded consciousness. Feel now how everything within you has aligned with these ancient patterns. Your breath flowing in cycles so gentle they barely register in awareness. Your heartbeat steady and strong yet quieter than during wakefulness. Your nervous system having shifted from activation to restoration. Your consciousness having transformed from focused attention to expansive receptivity. This perfect preparation for deep sleep represents not something you've created through effort, but rather your natural alignment with patterns established at life's earliest beginnings on our planet. The ancient wisdom of consciousness transformation expressing itself through your own gradually deepening relaxation. As we approach the final moments of our journey together, allow yourself to release any remaining effort to follow these words. To let them wash over you like gentle waves on an ancient shore. To receive them as soft guidance toward a state your body already knows how to enter. That your nervous system has been designed to access. That your consciousness naturally transforms into when given the right conditions. The profound restoration that has sustained life on Earth across billions of nights, across millions of years, across countless cycles of waking and sleeping since consciousness first emerged from the primordial waters of our young planet. Let this ancient wisdom carry you now beyond the reach of language, beyond the grasp of directed thought, into the regenerative realm where consciousness continues its journey in forms that transcend our waking understanding. Where the boundary between individual and universal grows increasingly permeable. Where awareness expands beyond the confines of separate identity into connection with something larger, older, more fundamental than personal existence. The timeless state your ancestors have inhabited since life's earliest beginnings. The deep, ancient wisdom of evolutionary sleep that flows through your being like a river of consciousness connecting you to all living things across the vast expanse of planetary time. As our journey through evolutionary time reaches its final moments. As consciousness hovers on the threshold of complete surrender to the wisdom of deep sleep. Let us gather the ancient teachings one last time. Let them settle around you like gentle waves on a primordial shore. Let them guide you toward the most profound rest, the deepest rejuvenation, the complete renewal that awaits beyond the final doorway of waking awareness. We began our exploration with the tuatara, last survivor of an ancient reptilian order that flourished 220 million years ago. With its third eye gazing across geological epochs, with its patience measured not in minutes or hours but in centuries of unhurried existence. This living fossil taught us the wisdom of evolutionary stability, finding such perfect adaptation that further change becomes unnecessary. Its extraordinarily slow metabolism demonstrated the power of energy conservation. Its measured movements revealed the effectiveness of deliberate patience. Its continued existence across spans of time that claimed countless other species validated the strength that lies in perfect stillness. From the tuatara, we journeyed to the mysterious depths where the coelacanth maintains its ancient vigil. A fish believed extinct for 65 million years until its rediscovery shocked the scientific world. Unchanged in its essential form for 400 million years. With its lobe fins moving in patterns that hint at the evolutionary transition from ocean to land. This remarkable creature taught us that perfection, once achieved, requires no fundamental revision. That successful adaptation lies not always in constant change but sometimes in finding such complete equilibrium that transformation becomes redundant. That true mastery may express itself not through dominance but through perfect integration with environment. We then encountered the giant tortoises, Earth's longest-lived vertebrates carrying centuries of awareness within their weathered shells. Moving across island landscapes with steps so measured they seem to inhabit a different temporal dimension than our hurried human existence. Their extraordinary lifespans taught us about expanded temporality, the experience of time not as a rushing current but as a gentle pool to be inhabited fully. Their careful conservation of energy demonstrated the sustainability that comes from perfect equilibrium between expenditure and restoration. Their gradual, steady growth across decades revealed the power of unhurried development compared to rapid expansion. Our journey continued with the crocodilians, masters of patient waiting who have maintained their essential form for more than 200 million years. Surviving the cataclysm that claimed the dinosaurs through perfect adaptation to their ecological niche. Their capacity for motionless vigilance taught us that sometimes the most effective action is perfect stillness. Their extraordinary energy efficiency demonstrated the power of conservation over constant consumption. Their ability to survive extended periods without food revealed the resilience that comes from metabolic patience. Their unihemispheric sleep patterns showed us that rest itself can be refined to perfect equilibrium between restoration and awareness. Finally, we explored the sharks, Earth's most ancient vertebrate predators whose basic design was established more than 400 million years ago, before plants had colonized land. Their streamlined bodies, with muscle arranged in powerful bands along the spine, demonstrated evolutionary engineering so perfect that hundreds of millions of years of natural selection could do little to improve it. Their remarkable sensory systems revealed the value of perception refined to extraordinary precision rather than constantly seeking novelty. Their measured energy expenditure taught us the effectiveness of conservation over constant activity. The Greenland shark's 4-century lifespan showed us what it means to measure existence not in years or decades but in geological pulses. Together, these living fossils offered us profound alternatives to our modern assumptions about success and adaptation. Where we often equate achievement with constant transformation, they demonstrated the effectiveness of evolutionary stability. Where we value speed, they embodied the power of patience. Where we pursue constant activity, they revealed the strength in perfect stillness. Where we consume resources at an ever-accelerating pace, they showed us the sustainability that comes from perfect equilibrium between expenditure and restoration. From these ancient teachers, we learned about different modes of consciousness beyond our ordinary human experience. The tuatara's third eye perceiving light in ways our mammalian vision cannot comprehend. The coelacanth's awareness of electromagnetic fields and pressure variations in the ocean depths. The tortoise's expanded temporality creating a different quality of presence. The crocodilian's capacity for divided consciousness during unihemispheric sleep. The shark's sensory world revealing dimensions of reality invisible to human perception. Each offering glimpses of awareness fundamentally different from yet intimately related to our own. Most importantly, we explore how these ancient beings rest. How they transition between wakefulness and sleep with the same unhurried grace that characterizes all aspects of their existence. The tuatara's extraordinary metabolic reduction during deepest rest. The coelacanth's twilight consciousness in ocean depths. The tortoise's gradual surrender to rejuvenating stillness. The crocodilian's sophisticated alternation between alertness and restoration. The shark's capacity to rest while maintaining essential movement. Each demonstrating that true sleep emerges not from effort but from perfect surrender to patterns established hundreds of millions of years before human consciousness emerged. And now, as our own consciousness hovers on the threshold of complete transformation, as the boundary between listening and dreaming grows increasingly permeable, as thoughts dissolve into images and directed attention surrenders to receptive awareness, we prepare for the final journey into the ancient wisdom of deep sleep, the profound restoration that awaits beyond the doorway of waking consciousness, the complete renewal that has sustained life on Earth across billions of nights since awareness first emerged from the primordial waters of our young planet. If you've somehow remained conscious through our entire evolutionary journey, if you've witnessed the ancient wisdom of the tuatara's third eye, the coelacanth's deep ocean dwelling, the tortoise's century-spanning existence, the crocodilian's patient waiting, the shark's timeless design, then you truly deserve to know which of these remarkable creatures most deeply resonates with your own being. Are you patient like the tortoise? Watchful like the crocodilian? Ancient in soul like the shark? Please share in the comments which living fossil feels most connected to your own nature. Which ancient wisdom speaks most directly to your modern heart. And I'll know you journey with me all the way to the final shores of wakefulness before surrendering to the ancient seas of dream. Perhaps you're drawn to the tuatara, with its extraordinary slowness, its thorough connecting to light in ways our mammalian brains can barely comprehend. Perhaps its patience speaks to something in your own soul that values stillness over constant movement, depth over breadth, quality over quantity. Perhaps its remarkable evolutionary stability reminds you that sometimes achievement comes not through constant change but through finding such perfect adaptation that further transformation becomes unnecessary. Or maybe the coelacanth story resonates more deeply with your experience. This fish that was believed extinct for 65 million years until it reappeared, very much alive, in modern oceans. Perhaps its unexpected survival speaks to your own resilience through difficult times. Its ability to thrive in the twilight depths might reflect your comfort with liminal spaces, with existing between defined categories or expectations. Its lobed fins, suggesting the evolutionary transition from ocean to land, might symbolize your own capacity to bridge different worlds, different ways of being. You might find particular wisdom in the giant tortoise, Earth's longest-lived vertebrate whose individual existence can span 3 human generations. Perhaps its extraordinary lifespan mirrors your own expanded perspective on time and change. Its unhurried pace across island landscapes might reflect your recognition that speed often sacrifices depth. Its careful conservation of energy may speak to your own understanding that sustainability requires balance between expenditure and restoration rather than constant consumption. The crocodilian's patient waiting might contain the wisdom you most need in your current life circumstances. Its capacity to remain motionless for hours or days while maintaining perfect vigilance. Its extraordinary effectiveness when action finally comes. Its metabolic patience during periods of scarcity. Perhaps these qualities reflect your own understanding that success often depends not on constant activity but on perfect timing. Not on perpetual motion but on knowing precisely when to remain still and when to act with decisive purpose. Or perhaps the shark's ancient wisdom speaks most directly to your experience. The perfect streamlining that requires no fundamental revision across 400 million years of evolution. The sensory refinement that allows it to detect electrical fields and pressure changes invisible to human perception. The capacity to continue essential movement even during periods of rest. Maybe these qualities mirror your own recognition that mastery often involves refinement rather than reinvention. That perfect adaptation may express itself through elegant efficiency rather than constant transformation. As you prepare to drift beyond the reach of these words, as consciousness begins its final transformation from directed thought to receptive dreaming, consider which of these ancient teachers will accompany you into the realm beyond wakefulness. Which evolutionary wisdom will continue speaking through your dreams? The tuatara's patient stillness, the coelacanth's twilight existence, the tortoise's unhurried presence, the crocodilian's vigilant waiting, the shark's timeless design. Each offers a different gift, a different teaching, a different aspect of the profound wisdom that has sustained life on Earth across geological ages. Feel which of these ancient companions resonates most deeply with your own being. Whose wisdom speaks most directly to your current life circumstances. Whose patience most closely mirrors your own relationship with time and change. There is no right or wrong choice, no better or worse alignment. Only the recognition that within the vast diversity of evolutionary adaptation, certain patterns may reflect aspects of your own nature more clearly than others. Certain teachings may offer exactly the wisdom you most need at this particular moment in your journey. As consciousness approaches its final surrender to the ancient wisdom of sleep, let us prepare for this transformation with a visualization drawn from Earth's oldest living beings. Imagine yourself floating in a vast, tranquil ocean, the water perfectly supporting your body, requiring no effort to maintain your position. Just as ancient fish have been suspended in Earth's waters for more than 400 million years. Feel how completely held you are, how perfectly supported, how the boundary between your body and the water begins to soften, to dissolve. With each slow breath, imagine sinking deeper into these primordial waters. With each exhale, releasing any remaining tension, any lingering effort to maintain wakefulness. Just as marine creatures surrender to the gentle currents that carry them through ocean depths. Feel yourself becoming increasingly weightless. Boundaries between self and surroundings growing more permeable. Consciousness expanding beyond the confines of ordinary awareness into something more diffuse, more receptive, more connected to the vast evolutionary history carried in your cells. Imagine now that the water around you begins to glow with soft, gentle bioluminescence. Just as certain deep ocean creatures create their own light in twilight depths. This is not external illumination but rather consciousness itself beginning to emit its own gentle radiance. Awareness turned inward to illuminate the vast inner cosmos that exists beyond waking perception. The realm where dreams unfold according to patterns established hundreds of millions of years before human thought emerged. With each breath now, feel yourself drifting deeper into this luminous ocean of consciousness. Each exhale carrying you further from the shores of waking awareness. Each inhale filling you with the ancient wisdom that has sustained life on Earth since its earliest beginnings. There is nothing you need to do now. Nowhere you need to go. No effort required. Only the gentle surrender to currents of sleep that have carried countless beings through countless nights across the vast expanse of evolutionary history. As we approach the final moments of our journey together, let consciousness settle into its most receptive state, where words no longer require intellectual processing but simply wash over you like gentle waves on an ancient shore. Let every cell in your body align with the wisdom of evolutionary rest. The perfect stillness that has restored beings on Earth for billions of nights across geological ages. Feel how your breath has naturally found its sleep rhythm. Slow, deep, effortless. This pattern was established hundreds of millions of years before human consciousness emerged. It represents your birthright as a living being whose lineage stretches back to life's earliest beginnings on our planet. The ancient wisdom of respiratory regulation during sleep expressing itself through your own gradually deepening relaxation. Notice how your heartbeat has settled into its rest pattern. Strong yet quiet. Steady yet gentle. This rhythm has sustained vertebrate life for more than 500 million years of evolutionary history. It continues now through your own cardiovascular system. The ancient wisdom of circulatory regulation during sleep expressing itself through your own gradually deepening relaxation. Feel how your muscles have released all unnecessary tension. How your limbs have found their perfect resting position. How your facial features have softened into complete repose. This physical surrender has facilitated regenerative rest for countless beings across countless nights since vertebrate life first emerged. It continues now through your own neuromuscular system. The ancient wisdom of physical restoration during sleep expressing itself through your own gradually deepening relaxation. In these final moments before consciousness transforms completely into the wisdom of dreams, let every aspect of your being align with the perfect stillness that restores and rejuvenates all life on Earth. The tuatara's patience, the coelacanth's depth, the tortoise's unhurried presence, the crocodilian's vigilant rest, the shark's timeless movement, all flowing together through your own experience of the threshold between wakefulness and sleep. Feel now how everything within you is synchronized with Earth's ancient rhythms. Your breath flowing in cycles as old as life itself. Your heartbeat echoing the primordial pulse that has sustained consciousness for more than 500 million years. Your body having found the perfect position for complete restoration. Your mind having released the necessarily limited focus of waking awareness into something more expansive, more receptive, more connected to the vast evolutionary wisdom carried in your cells. Let this ancient knowledge carry you now beyond the reach of words, beyond the grasp of directed thought, into the regenerative realm where consciousness continues its journey in forms that transcend our waking understanding, where the boundary between individual and universal grows increasingly permeable, where awareness expands beyond the confines of separate identity into connection with something larger, older, more fundamental than personal existence. The timeless state your ancestors have inhabited since life's earliest beginnings on our planet. Drift now into this profound rest, carried by currents of consciousness older than human language, older than human thought, as timeless as life itself. The perfect stillness that has restored beings on Earth for billions of nights across geological ages. The complete surrender to regenerative wisdom that emerges not from effort but from perfect alignment with patterns established at the very dawn of awareness on our living planet. Sleep now, suspended in the ancient ocean of consciousness that connects all living beings across the vast expanse of evolutionary time, until morning light gently calls you back to the shores of waking awareness. Renewed, restored, reconnected to the timeless wisdom that flows through all life on Earth.